also the community garden, park diplomas, fair housing one, fire hydrant. Fire hydrant. I guess that's what
I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you would all please stand.
Room, attention. Color guard, attention. Color guard, advance. Salute. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you stay standing, please?
Color guard, post the colors. Color guard dismissed. 2.
I would like to compliment this presentation of colors by the Weeblo Scout Pack 360 Den 2. And is this what all America is all about? If you please bow your head in prayer. Heavenly Father, you have taught us as leaders. We cannot accomplish all by ourselves. We look to you for wise counsel, for wisdom and knowledge. And Lord, we thank you for the privilege of serving the people of Goodyear. And we ask that you sustain our people with your bountiful spirit. And as we join hands and hearts and voices as we face future challenges, keep your steadfast care over our troops and their families serving throughout the world. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. Well, I'm looking at the council, and I believe all is in attendance, but Councilman Cavalier, and again, that will come on later in the agenda. There are none. The approved or ratified expenditures, there are none. Others can be reviewed on the website from the past if you would like. We have 4 items under communication, and so let's begin with the fire hydrant painting acknowledgement and thank you from Swastonic. Judy? And did I get your name correctly pronounced, Judy? It's always a challenge for me.
It's Swatanic. I always tell people, think of Titanic, Swatanic.
Swatanic. All right, gotcha.
Thank you. Good evening, new Mayor Lord.
Thank you.
And all the council members, congratulations on having you back, and new members, welcome. City Manager John Fishbach, and guests. First of all, I'd like to say I love my job. I always have an opportunity to connect residents with opportunities that they can do here in the city of Goodyear and make a difference, which is really important, and they want to give back. They really want to do something for their community. And 2 weeks ago, a little over 2 weeks ago, on March 12th, we had an opportunity such as this where we brought together youth, teens from 5 Goodyear churches that wanted to do something. We had 102 teens and their sponsors come and went out and painted 137 fire hydrants in Goodyear. Isn't that awesome?
That's awesome.
Plus, there were some teens that went out and did some weed cleaning around one of our city wells. They gave 204 hours of service. The best part of this, everything was donated. There was no cost to the city for this. All of the paint was donated. The churches bought the vest. We had snacks that were donated by McLean SunWest. So again, a total of $3,600 we figured that was put into the project with no cost to the city. I have a short video that one of the churches, Refinery Church, put together for us, but we're going to be handing out some plaques to those people that participated. And Mayor Lord, your first official act, I'd love for you to come and hand out the plaques. And Vice Mayor Pozzillo, at that time you were acting mayor, and you participated that morning. So if I could have both of you come down after the video. And Ray Diaz, Public Works, was very tremendous in working with us and getting all the maps together and plotting where we wanted to go and do all the paint. And Ray, there he is. All right, there's a man. Is going to help with the handing out the plaques. I'll announce who they are and they'll come up. So if we could have the video. Thank you to Steve Graham with Refinery Church who put that video together for us. So Mayor and Vice Mayor, if I could have you down here. We have plaques that Ray will be helping you, and we'll take some photos. I don't know if I missed him, if he came in or not, but a big thanks to Sean Hurley with Dunn Edwards Paint, which is located there at McDowell and Litchfield. They donated all of the special yellow OSHA paint. Is Sean here? Okay, well, we'll come get to the plaque to him. Second, I'd like to thank Teresa Hatch with McLean SunWest. They donated all the water and all the snacks for the kids for the morning lunch.
How's that? She's the important one. Thank you. Judy, I would just like to say that, it's really important when you see these young people out there, but you know what they're doing? They're taking ownership of our city. Mm-hmm. So they're our future in Goodyear, and it's a great demonstration. I thank you so much for this.
Take it back. Oh, that's yours. Thank you. Okay, just wait, just a second, Mayor Lord. Okay, we have the 5 churches, and first off, I'd like to have come up would be Steve Graham with Refinery Christian Church. Steve was instrumental. He's the one that came. Steve came to us and said, we have all these teens coming together. Can you come up with a project for this? So he's the man.
part in city government and helping us on a volunteer basis. I believe the Christian reaching out is wonderful, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Steve wanted to do this for a day of service to teach their youth that, and so we look forward to working. I know Ray and I are working again with them to maybe do some fire hydrants. Second church,
Are they part of the Faith Roundtable?
I believe they are, yes.
So
Yep.
they are part of our group called the Faith Roundtable that has been meeting regularly and helping the city in many ways.
The second church I'd like to recognize at this time is Christ Presbyterian Church with Orion Steen. We'll present it to him. That's Christ Presbyterian Church.
Thank you again. I know that your church is part of the round table, and we really appreciate all the work you're doing for our city. Thank you.
Lastly, of the five churches that were here, we have one more that is represented tonight, and that is the Vineyard Church. And here to accept the award is Kyle Hammergest.
Thank you for being so active and good here with your youth. I know you do some really good things for your church, and I appreciate that.
That's it. Yeah, thank you. The two churches that couldn't join us tonight were the Streams and Palm Valley Church, and both of those are very active in some of the other programs that I have. So that's it, and thank you for your time.
Okay, next is April is Fair Housing Month. So we have Katie Wilkin and Frank Russo from the Maricopa County Regional Association of Realtors.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. April is nationally recognized as Fair Housing Month, and we are lucky enough to have representatives from the West Maricopa County Regional Association of Realtors with us tonight to tell us a little bit about the importance of fair housing. So I'd like to introduce Frank Russo from Weimar. Frank?
Good evening,
Good evening.
Mayor, council members, and distinguished guests. I'm Frank Russo. I'm the 2011 president of the West Maricopa Association of Realtors. Weimar represents over 6,000 realtors and affiliate members in the West Valley. Weimar is also a leading advocate for property rights and home ownership. Included in that advocacy goal is a commitment to lead the area of fair housing. The Fair Housing Act was passed in 1968. It declared a national policy of fair housing throughout the United States. The law makes it illegal any discrimination in the sale, lease, or rental of housing, or making housing otherwise unavailable because of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or national origin. Because of this law, the home seller, the home seeker, and realtors have rights and responsibilities under the law. As a home seller or landlord, you have a responsibility and a requirement under the law not to discriminate in the sale, rental, and financing of property based on race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, and national origin. You cannot instruct the licensed broker or salesperson acting as your agent to convey to you any limitations in the sale or rental, because the real estate professional is also bound by law not to discriminate. Under the law, a home seller or landlord cannot establish discriminatory terms or conditions in the purchase or rental, deny that housing is available, or advertise that the property is available only to persons of a certain race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or national origin. As a home seeker, you have the right to expect that housing will be available to you without discrimination or any other limitations based on the race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or national origin. This includes the right to expect that the housing in your price range is made available to you without discrimination, that you will receive equal professional service, the opportunity to consider a broad range of housing choices. You have a right to expect that discriminatory limitations on the communities or locations of housing, there will be none. No discrimination in the financing, appraising, or insuring of housing. You have a right to expect reasonable accommodation in rules, practices, and procedures for persons with disabilities. Non-discriminatory terms and conditions for the sale, rental, financing, or insuring of the dwelling. You have a right to expect to be free from harassment or intimidation for exercising your fair housing rights. Agents in a real estate transaction are prohibited by law from discriminating based on race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or national origin. A request from a home seller or landlord to act in a discriminatory manner in the sale, lease, or rental cannot legally be fulfilled by the real estate professional. Realtors believe so strongly in fair housing that they have made it part of their code of ethics. Article 10 of the National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics provides that realtors shall not deny equal professional service to any person or for reasons of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, or sexual orientation. Realtors shall not be parties to any plan or agreement to discriminate against a person or persons based on race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, or sexual orientation. Realtors in the real estate employment practices shall not discriminate against any person or persons based on race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, or sexual orientation. We as an organization applaud the action by the City of Goodyear in the support of fair housing and the importance this plays in our community. We further support the City of Goodyear in any efforts to improve and increase fair housing activities within the City of Goodyear. Thank you for your time and willingness to be a part of this very important topic. Thank you.
Mr. Russo, Mr. Russo, I'd like to thank you and Weimar. We appreciate your commitment to the fair housing. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to follow up, there is a resolution on the consent agenda to show the city's support for furthering fair housing. Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is the community garden at Parc des Pas. Mike Svets, Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Back in November of 2009, I received a random email or phone call, I don't recall exactly which communication it was, from the president of the North Subdivision Neighborhood Alliance, Dave Schock. And he was very interested in coming up with brainstorming ways in which to improve Parc des Pas. Parc des Pas is located in the North Subdivision Neighborhood Alliance. It is a neighborhood park, and it is one of our older parks in our system. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, it is just a little bit north of Van Buren and east of Central Avenue. Anyway, we met for coffee, and we started to brainstorm some ideas to come up with ways to improve Parc des Pas. At that point, we pretty much settled on the development of a community garden. The idea behind residents coming together to develop it as well as grow their own vegetables. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce the visionary and invite him to come up and say a few words, and then I'll come back and narrate a little slideshow. You certainly don't want me to sing to it, so hold on. Dave.
Good afternoon, Mayor Lord and our newly formed council. Like Mike said, the North Subdivisions is located between Dysart Road, Litchfield Road, and just north of Van Buren. Commonly known for a lot of the older residents, that was Arnold Manor and Manzanita Heights. Quite a number of us have lived in that neighborhood for a number of years. My wife Sharon and I have lived there for over 20 years, so it's been a home for us. So in the fall of 2009, my neighbor Jason Keel and I got to talking about the possibility of a community garden, and we thought about it at the park. And both of us are garden enthusiasts, but lack enough room in our own backyards to really garden. So As president of the North Subdivision's Neighborhood Alliance, I decided to take the next step and contact Mike to explore the possibility of working with the city to start such a project. I guess you could say the seed was planted at that time, and I just wanted to add some water to it and make it grow. So Mike and I met at JB's in November of 2009 so that I could present the idea. I was pleased that he was so receptive to that idea. It seems that Mike has a green thumb of his own and has had some experience in this area in the past. We decided the next step was to present the idea to the rest of the residents at our next Alliance meeting and see how receptive they were. After presenting the idea at our January 2010 meeting, we found other gardeners in the neighborhood that also felt the same way. We discussed possible locations at Parc des Pas that would be suitable and gathered interest forms from the neighbors. After a couple additional meetings with Mike during the spring and the summer, the location was chosen. In October of this year, we broke ground on the west end of Parc des Pas along Palo Verde Drive. On October 23rd, which was Make a Difference Day, several of the North Subdivision's gardeners, along with folks from the Parks and Rec Department, met at our new garden site to add amendments to the garden soil and get some hands-on planting guides from Karen and Parks and Rec, and get the ground ready to accept more than just Bermuda grass. Mike told us to be patient at this time and let the ground wake up, and that seeing weeds grow would be a good thing. Imagine that. After all these years of trying to get rid of them, we now wanted them to grow. All we could do now is wait and get reservations for the 10 plots we had slated. At our January meeting, we passed out the official reservation forms. It was encouraging to see the interest starting to grow at this point. The Parc des Pas community garden was going to be a reality. On March 5th of this year, several of the new gardeners met with J.R. Kane, one of our parks employees, and also a certified arborist, and to get kind of a gardening 101 workshop and discuss how the plots would be laid out. JR did an excellent job of explaining what the watering schedule would be and offered his ideas as to plant choices and what we could or could not do. During the following week, a perimeter fence was installed, and several eager gardeners met the next Saturday to actually lay out the plots, and several of us put seeds in the ground that weekend. So that was 2 weeks ago. We now have a garden. It has turned into the type of enhancement to our neighborhood and park that I was hoping for. On several occasions in the past couple of weeks while going to tend our plot, my wife and I have encountered new people that we probably would never have engaged with. I've spoken to a gentleman from the apartments that would like to get involved. There was a young couple that stopped while looking at a house in our neighborhood, and what especially for us was a young man that was peacefully sitting next to the garden one Sunday here last week, just to kind of work out some personal issues. And Sharon and I really had the sense that this is going to be a garden de paz, a garden of peace. None of this would have become a reality if it weren't for Mike, Jennifer Campbell, JR, and the rest of the Parks and Recreation Department. With this partnering with the City of Goodyear and our neighbors of North Subdivision, I feel that we have started something special that will last a long time. Like my wife Sharon mentioned to me the other day, this is like we could say we're cultivating a community. Thank you again to the City of Goodyear, Parks and Rec Department, and everyone else that has been involved with the North Subdivision's Neighborhood Alliance Garden de Pas Community Garden Project. And feel free to give us any kind of suggestions that you all have, because this is truly a pilot program, and we're just going to keep it growing.
Well, we can't thank you enough for bringing your community together. What a special, special event you're having there, and it's bringing people together. Is that what's happening? People you've never talked to before are showing up.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So
Well, we hope this catches on throughout our community. It's a wonderful project. Thank you.
it's been a blessing. So.
Great.
As I said, I am not going to sing. These are just a few pictures that gives you a visual of the journey that this Garden de Pas has taken over the last 15, 16 months. That is the official garden as it looks today. Groundbreaking that took place. Parks and employees, not that one. Irrigation being worked on. Irrigation working, very important. We engage the community in planting seedlings on Make a Difference Day so that when the garden was ready to be planted in March, it worked out well. And the neighborhood really took over. In the next few slides, you will see them basically discussing and laying out the different plots, stringing them as they saw fit. We really wanted to empower the neighborhood to take some ownership of this project, and it's really worked out well. No dogs allowed. You can see it tied to the fence. Sharon, after the handiwork's been done. And there you have it, Garden to Paws.
Any comments from the council on this that you have?
That's exciting. I'd like to see it go throughout our city, different neighborhoods trying that. That's wonderful. Good job.
And we have had a couple of other neighborhoods give us a call about this, and we fully expect as word gets out that this is something that will grow. We're very happy to work with North Subdivision Neighborhood Alliance on this pilot project at this time.
Good job, Mike.
Very good.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Now we come to the time for citizens' comments and appearance from the floor.
Madam Mayor?
Oh, sorry, I didn't do something.
No, we have one more item.
Oh, I missed it. Oh, my goodness. Economic development. Now, how could I do that, Paula, when I'm so interested in economic development? Yeah, first meeting, you're right. Thank you.
Well, and this is a really happy day. I've led up to it, and I'm finally able to announce that we have a new company coming to Goodyear. It's Scholler Arca Systems, and they're one of the global leaders in providing small collapsible plastic containers. They're actually the world leader in plastic containers for transport. Their market is pretty much the produce industry around the world. Just about everything you've seen in corrugated up to now can now be put into plastic, and they've even invented a container that for the first time you can ripen bananas in the plastic container as they come from wherever they come from. And a lot of times in Walmart, we'll have these containers actually on the shelf, and they'll keep the produce in them and display them. The president of the company, Robert Engel, had sent a picture around to all of us when Michelle Obama was standing in front of a produce display, and he wrote, "That's our container in the back." So, they are a Netherlands company, a worldwide company, huge, and their North American headquarters is in Skokie, Illinois. Will be, I think, their second plant. They also have one in Michigan. And they're going to take 137,000 square feet in the Rubbermaid building, the old manufacturing area. And they're also going to build 4,000 square feet of glass office on the outside. They're going to employ up to 164 people and make a large capital investment. $32 million, $29 million of that in equipment, and about $3 million in TIs. They're going to be using the rail. It's one of the first ones to use rail for their pellets. And it's interesting, many things that were taken out of the Rubbermaid building could have been left there, and they could have absolutely used everything in that building. Also, they're going to want a foreign trade zone. Now, this is not in one of our current 3 foreign trade zone sites. So this would be a user-activated site, and that means we're going to have to go back to the school districts again and get their approval. The good news is that this building exists and is already on the books, and therefore, even though it will be assessed at a lower rate because of the property, because it's in a foreign trade zone, we'll have a pilot agreement to bring that payment back up, so the city, we, and the school districts will be whole on the property tax. So that's number 1, good news. Number 2 is sort of good and sort of bad. The good is that Mach 1 company is coming. It's a logistics firm that stores and ships materials, and they have taken half of the more than half, 260,000 square feet of the Sun Life building. That's we call it the Loft building south of MC 85. And they're going to have 5 to 10 employees. Now, the only thing that's sad about that is that's our last building. Now, we told you that we're going to run out of buildings, and it looks like we're on our way to running out of buildings. Now, there's still 145,000 square feet left in the building. It's just not as easy as we're finding out in the Rubbermaid building to get multiple tenants into these buildings. And just there are still a lot of people out there looking for the 400,000 square foot building. There's only 3 left in the valley now. So that's different. There were 9 last year, so that's what's happening. Also, from an expansion standpoint, Arizona Galvanizing is expanding their 40,000 square foot expansion. They're going to make $4 to $5 million investment, and they will bring on 15 to 25 more employees. They already have about 50 or 60. So that's some of our current companies. Now they're the only one of only 3 galvanizing companies west of the Mississippi. So, and they're one of the reasons they're expanding is because they're getting looking at a lot of possible contracts with solar as well. In fact, we talked to a steel company today that would end up sending many of their products to Arizona Galvanizing. And the other thing about the steel company that we talked to today is that they were here a year and a half ago looking at spaces, and they said to us, well, what about that space? Gone. What about that space? Gone. They said, what happened? We said, yeah, we're the best. You know, everybody wants to come here. So the other is we're also, again, I mentioned before that we're shortlisted, and we're still shortlisted with some really major possibilities. And by shortlisted, I mean very shortlisted. It's like maybe between 1 or 2 other places. One is a food manufacturer that wants to build 100 to 120,000 square feet. And see, we're out of buildings, but people, there are companies with money. They are doing build-to-suit, which is good. We were afraid that when we ran out of buildings, we might have a real lull, say of a year or so, before people could get financing or come in for the build-to-suit. But its timing is working actually perfectly on that. There's a lot of people looking for build-to-suits. We're also a finalist with multiple sites within Goodyear for a major national retailer for a distribution center. And so I think Goodyear is one of their preferred sites. So there are several areas that they're looking at in Goodyear. And we're also definitely on the short list for a European solar company that could make a huge investment in the state. So there's a lot of good news happening right at the moment. Any questions?
No, but I think before you make any comments, I think we need to give them some applause. Councilman Susan? Councilman Susan?
You know, with the successes you've had in these areas of acquiring new businesses for the city of Goodyear, I think we ought to let this be known to the developers that we deal with or that we don't deal with right now, and just tell them, you know, what's happening here in Goodyear.
Well, that's one of the reasons we had the showcase in November, to tell a lot of the developers who we didn't deal with what was going on and the good news story that we had to tell. And I think Suntech really made the difference for us, I think. It really did put us on the map for everyone to look at. And this is, we're like the leading edge. We're right on the edge.
That's right.
Leading California, that's where a lot of the market is, especially for solar. And so I think, because Suntech is here and in the solar industries, other people are looking at us as well. But, you know, we want to be a manufacturing center, and we're going to get some distribution because we're along I-10. There's no doubt about that. And the distributor that's looking at us is looking at building over 600,000 square foot center. So that's huge. It would employ about 200 people.
So actually, we're down to 2 available buildings at the present time.
There's not one single building left. There's 100,000 square feet left in Rubbermaid, and there's about 145,000 left in Sun Life, and there's about 50,000 left in Goodyear Crossings, where Suntech is. Yeah. And there's some other buildings. Yeah. There are some other buildings, but they're not
Well, that
huge.
tells me something here with the developers. This has got to be an ideal spot for speculation building. And I would maybe send out some communication to them saying we're welcoming you to try spec building in the city of Goodyear, so that we are available, you know, for anybody that wants to come here.
Right.
And
we do mention that, council member. There's just not a lot of financing out there right now for spec buildings.
Well,
They're really
you know,
not taking. There's still a huge inventory of buildings in the valley, and that's why it's going to be a while till we see spec again, I think. The problem is that for those who want to build a suit, they're not finding that special building that really meets their needs, and so if they have money, they're willing to build themselves.
So we're more likely to get someone building to suit than we are. Yeah.
But spec will come back, but it's probably still a ways off before they're willing to invest in spec.
one other item. Have you made any contact with Ping Golf at all?
They're on our list to call.
Excellent.
I think Paul might have called by now. I called an old friend who knew Carson Soldheim, and Carson Soldheim III, seeing if we could get in that way. And in the meantime, I haven't heard from him. I'm almost sure Paul has called already.
I mean, they're talking about a lot of millions of dollars of investment, and if they're having problems with the area that they're in, this is the place to be,
Yes,
right here.
that's right. It is.
Okay, thanks
Any other
again.
comments?
Appreciate your efforts.
Paula, thank you. Your department is doing wonderful, and we really appreciate all the hard work.
And I have to thank Harry and Paul. They're wonderful. team.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You like that news?
Okay, now I will take citizens' comments and appearances from the floor. The speaker is limited to 3 minutes, and I'm going to add this to you that this year we are going to abide by that. And if it's difficult for you as a citizen, what I encourage you to do is before the meeting or at any time, call one of these people on the dais. That's what we're elected for, to help you, to listen to you, to help you with your concerns. So you may be getting the gavel or the beep or whatever it is, because I am going to stick to that. So identify yourself by clearly stating for the record your name and the address. Non-agenda items, this is the time for citizens who would like to address the City Council on any non-agenda item. The council will listen to the comments and may take any one of the following. And for the public and the people that are listening online, please listen to this, because many times we get criticized for not responding to the citizen, and they get the attitude that we don't care. We do care. This is where we can't, by state statute, talk. So we can respond to your criticism, we can request the staff to investigate and report on the matter, and we request the matter be scheduled on a future agenda. Speakers?
Yes, I have 4, and the first one is Jennifer Barber.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jennifer.
My name is Jennifer Barber. My address is 18295 West Sweet Acacia Drive. So good evening, Mayor Lord and members of the council. Tonight I'm here just to say thank you. And I don't know how often it is that you hear thank you, but you really deserve it. And the city of Goodyear deserves a huge thank you. And I know this is long overdue, but I thought tonight would be a good night to do this. I work with a local nonprofit called Goodyear in Action. We are a health and wellness organization here in the city, and many of you have helped out on several occasions and are members of our board. Our mission is to promote, educate, and motivate people of all ages in the entire West Valley to live healthier lifestyles. And we got our start in 2008. It was right after the city of Goodyear had won the All-America City Competition. And I had the honor of being one of the citizens to go to the competition. And when I was there, the one most important thing I learned was the importance of collaboration. And so when we returned from the competition, a couple of us got together and thought, what can we do in the city of Goodyear to continue to grow this city and to collaborate with others? Today, Goodyear in Action has over 40 members and supporting organizations. And I just can't tell you how grateful I am and how encouraging it is to see all of these people come together and do positive things in our community. Tonight, I would especially like to thank the Goodyear Fire Department and the Goodyear Police Department. Many times their members serve as fit role models at our Fit Kids Fun Runs. And then several city employees that I would like to thank. First and foremost would be Mike Spetz. He has been a wonderful guidance for our organization, helping us get off the ground. Jennifer Campbell, Sean Northup with the Goodyear Ballpark, Cindy Mason, who is very kind in answering all of my questions, Sandra Healy, Parish Spies, and Nora Fasinelli. I don't know if you remember or not, but the Goodyear in Action was awarded a ballpark suite to use as a fundraising tool, and last Friday was our day to do that. And instead of us going out there and having a big party and using the suite, we decided to invite 7 underprivileged children from the West Valley to go up with 1 adult each and enjoy the day. And thank you to Joanne Osborne for helping make that happen, along with Karen Verlardi. From my understanding, the Reds invited one of the children to throw out the first pitch. And the Goodyear Ballpark sent up Zizzy, the new ballpark mascot, to go up and talk to the kids during the seventh. Okay, sorry.
Time.
And so, anyhow, it was a fantastic day. Moving forward, Goodyear in Action is working with the city of Goodyear to become a Let's Move city. The White House has personally informed me that, yes, we are on their list, and so that's great. So anyhow, I see Goodyear in a very special light. Monthly, weekly, daily, I see all the wonderful and positive things happening here, and I thank you for all of your hard work.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Next speaker is William Stipp.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. First, let me start by congratulating you all on winning the primary election. I know it was a long, difficult road for many of you. Coming before you tonight regarding an issue that we all have spent time discussing during the campaign season, and that's our small businesses. On May 10th, 2010, a public hearing was conducted to consider implementing new fees, adjusting existing fees for services, permits, and operations, and to consider setting cost recovery levels as appropriate. The council passed Resolution 10-1357 following that hearing. I was recently sent an email from a business owner that contained a copy of a letter dated March 1st from our fire department announcing new biannual fire inspection fees. The business owner included his thoughts in saying this in his email, and I quote, "Just another lack of support tax for small businesses." I was shocked to see that we were now charging for mandatory fire inspections, something that we've been doing since the city fire department began its operation. While most businesses will be inspected every 2 years, they'll be charged what is considered a nominal fee of $50 to $65 per inspection. High-risk businesses will be charged $100 annually. These fees, on top of a normal business licensing fee of $75, makes it, once again, hard to start or to keep a business running in Goodyear. I know that this is not what we as a community believe is in the best interest of attracting and retaining local businesses. In addition to the fire inspection fee, we also increased the renewal cost for liquor licenses from $0 to $635. It's just one more hurdle that a restaurant now has to overcome, or a bar owner has to overcome, in addition to the higher taxes that I know we're already you're in the process of discussing reducing. I'm respectfully requesting that you place an agenda item to re-examine these fees on a near-term future meeting to take a look at these. We had some discussion earlier tonight about some of that. I understand that re-examining these may take some time, and if that's the case, we find that we're going to run late with that. I would maybe suggest that we suspend some of those fees until we're able to actually look at them and see what kind of impact they're going to have on our business community. With that, thank you very much for your time. Have a good night.
Thank you.
The next speaker is...
Can I make a comment on this? Is there was a request for a future to put this on an agenda? How I see this on the notes, so you just help me, John. I'm not sure how this goes.
If the mayor and the council wish that to happen, all you have to do is direct us to do that.
Well, I'm going to look to the council. I think it would be. Go ahead, please.
I don't know.
Is that allowed? Can they make comments? No. Okay.
Okay.
So
yes.
So I'm getting nods of heads. So without saying anything to them, yes, we would like that brought back on the agenda.
Thank you. We will do that.
Thank you.
Can I ask if it's on a work session or a meeting? How do we do that?
We will probably do it on a work session.
Yep. Good.
And is it okay to ask that?
I don't know.
yeah.
You just so like. Okay.
Yes, that is.
Is there any others?
Yes, two more. The next speaker is Roy Azzarello. I apologize if I did not pronounce it correctly. Did I pronounce it correctly?
You said Azzarello rhymes with Jolly Fellow, you got it. My name is Roy Azzarello. I live in Goodyear, 1547 West Amelia Drive. Today, I'm here to publicly recognize the City Council and declare that the City of Goodyear has an excellent group of leaders. Let me start out by making some personal comments to my friend over there, Wally Campbell. You won your election by 1,000 votes. You were the obvious choice. You were totally qualified. You're a leader in Pebble Creek. You've been on some committees for the City of Goodyear. And I just want to say, I told you, Wally, that your time has come. Guess what? Councilman Campbell, your time has come. I was right. Secondly, let me say something to Councilwoman Osborne. I watched you work before, Councilwoman, and the thing that impresses me most about you is that you're like a bulldog, but I mean a good bulldog, not a pit bull. You are so tenacious. When you tear something apart, you come up with an answer, and you know that it's been totally analyzed. That's, I think, the best quality that you bring to this council. And by the way, your vote total in the last election was quite impressive. Let me congratulate you on that. And to Councilman Sousa, when you came to Goodyear, you said you wanted to serve the city in which you live. Well, Councilman, you certainly have done that, have you not? You've served 3 terms, 4 years each, and all I can say to you is thank you for your service to the City of Goodyear. And now let me address a few comments to Councilwoman Laurentano. I don't know if you're Italian or if it's your husband who's Italian or both of you. I want you to know that's reason enough for you to be on this council. Just kidding. Just kidding. Here's what I want to say to you, Councilwoman Laurentano. You were appointed to this city council, but now you have been elected. Congratulations. You've done it on your own. I want to compliment you for that. Say congratulations for being on this council. Now, finally, I want to say to Councilman Pizzillo that you've come a long way in 2 years, Councilman. You were a junior member, then you were, I think, a vice mayor, and then you were a acting mayor. Am I 3 minutes up? Okay, so you've come a long way. Here's what I want to say to you, that you have qualities to be, you have executive qualities, and I think that one day you will be a leader of this council, and I'm sure that Vicki agrees with me. Now, let me read this real quick. My last one here. I don't want to make mistakes. Finally, Mayor Lord, an outstanding bocce ball player. You totally deserve to be mayor of Goodyear. You're the obvious choice, and for sure the most qualified. I am more than proud to have you as a good friend, and I'm honored. Your hard work as a former council member for 6 years was readily recognized by the residents of Goodyear, and I will conclude by saying that when the residents of Goodyear voted this year, they certainly did have Georgia on their mind. Thank you.
Thank you, and you made it before the light went out. Very good.
The last one is Patrick Cassidy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to address a concern that I have for Estrella Parkway. As you drive south off the I-10 toward Van Buren, it becomes a 3-lane down to 2-lane, and I've lost count how many times I've almost been sideswiped, other traveling along there, cut off. I do believe the street is wide enough to allow for restriping or repainting to have the 3 lanes all the way to Van Buren, and the right lane can then be the turn lane into, and still maintain the right turn lanes into the retail centers for that. And I would hope the council would have the correct department look into it and see what the cost would be, and to improve the safety on that street.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cassidy.
We will do that, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. And is that it?
I don't have any more.
All right, great. All right, well, we're on to the consent agenda, and if the clerk will begin.
Item A, approved draft minutes of a work session and a regular meeting held on February 28, 2011. Item B, approve a request from Susan Williams for a new Series 14 liquor license, number 140736061, for Cantonia at Estrella Community Association,
mean?
Inc., located at 17700 West Star Point Drive. Item C, adopt resolution 11-1423, promoting fair housing. Item D, 1, adopt a notice of intention to assess fees in addition to all monies owed or due to the city after debt remains unpaid for 30 days after the due date. The proposed additional fees assessed include a billing late fee of 1.5% per month, compounded daily after the due date onto any balance owed. A fee of 20% of the unpaid balance on each debt will be added if the debt goes to collections, and any interest, fee, charge, or expense, attorney fees, court costs, and any other normal and customary costs of collection. 2, set May 9th, 2011 as the date for a public hearing on the adoption of the proposed assessed fees. Item E1, adopt a notice of intention to increase residential utility deposit fees. E2, set May 9th, 2011 as the date for public hearing on the adoption of the approved residential utility deposit fees. Item F, adopt ordinance 11-1234, providing for an amendment to the planned area development land uses on a 6.5-acre portion of the Estrella Phase 1 pad from open space to estate residential and a 6.8-acre portion of the Estrella Mountain Ranch Golf Village pad from open space to low-density residential to permit the development of a 6-lot custom home subdivision on Estrella Parcel 5.6 located on the north side of West Star Drive, approximately 1/4 mile southwest of the intersection of West Star Drive and San Miguel Drive, adopting supplementary zoning map number 10-004 to provide for the pad zoning amendment, providing separability, and providing for an effective date.
Is there anyone on the audience who would like to remove a consent item for discussion?
Mayor Lord, I do have one from Wendy Dilla on the resolution 460, the ordinance to increase residential utility.
And that is what?
E?
Oh, it's the report 11-4603, so it's E.
It's E.
Raising the deposit fees.
I'm sorry, what?
Raising the deposit fees.
Okay, so E.
And if we could ask for clarification from Ms. Villa, that's just calling for the public hearing.
Okay.
So it's not a decision
Should
point.
we bring her up here and ask her clarification?
I think that would be
Could you come
helpful.
forth, please? Thank you.
I could answer from back there, but you might not be able to hear me. I'm fine with the item. It was just if something had come up, I wanted to have the ability to speak if I needed to. So it was only if necessary.
Okay, all right. Do I need a motion now?
You need to ask council.
Is any discussion or anyone on the council like to pull an item?
Yes.
Yes, do
I
Osborne?
would like to pull item E.
Okay.
Which one?
Councilman Osborne is asked to pull item E. Anyone else? All right, could I hear a motion for A through D and F and F?
How do you want that worded out? I move that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of, what is it, E that's been pulled?
Mm-hmm. Do I hear a second?
Yep. Yes.
Councilman Pizzillo, motion. Councilman Souza, second. All in favor?
Oh, this is roll call.
Roll call, thank you.
Councilmember Sousa,
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano,
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell, Mayor Lord,
Aye.
passes 6-0.
All right, so let's go to E. And who will be making the presentation?
Larry Lang, I
Larry?
believe, yeah.
I don't necessarily need a presentation. I asked for it to be, if you would like to hear a presentation, that's
No,
fine.
it's up to you. It's up to you.
I actually asked for it to be pulled because I understand that even though it's a public meeting or notice to the public. I said in our work session I was going to have to think about this, and I did think about it, and I believe that this policy does not promote homeownership. And I also believe that in a time where we've had so many foreclosures, that to increase the expense to a deposit for someone to either rent a home or to buy a new home, it could be an undue hardship for them. And so even though this is just going as a call for a public hearing, I don't agree with the policy. So I will be voting no against it, even for the get-go. Okay.
Any other comments?
Just a quick question on one of the areas, and again, I realize it's just for the public hearing, but it talks about deposit will be waived for customers that have promptly paid when due any prior monthly payments. And then it has another piece in there where it talks about the deposit requirement will also be waived for a rental tenant if the property's landlord, who must also meet the deposit, and it goes on, agrees to guarantee the tenant payment. I guess the question I have is a renter considered the customer as well? So in other words, if the renter for some reason has a history with the city or their history with another utility company of making payments timely, then you would be able to waive their deposit. That's what I was I was confused with the language.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the renter is the customer. The only way the property owner would be involved is if they elected to. They would not otherwise be involved.
Any other comments?
Well, I had the feeling from the work session it was going to be more credit based. I guess is where I thought it was going to be a lot more credit based, and I agree with Council Member Osborne. I think I'd like to see it before it goes to public hearing a little more reworked.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I would encourage you to take it to public hearing because we're forced because of the legislative action that's been taken to do this. And that's exactly why we're doing it. To make our laws consistent with the legislature, and Larry can give you a briefing as to why that's the case if you want, but that would be what we would do during the public hearing. So.
I was just going to make that comment because I was at the legislature and I just happened to be there when this came up, and absolutely our hands are tied. So, and that's why I understand that we need to take this to a public hearing.
Okay, so let me make sure I have this. So what we're saying is that this is going to a public hearing because there's a legislative issue that we need to come current with, correct?
That's correct.
But on top of that, we're changing the fees, which we don't necessarily have to do, but we still just need to go ahead and go forth as is that true?
One can argue whether or not you have to do it, but yes, you have to, in order to bring this law into consistency with the legislative actions, we have to do something.
Then I won't go against that. I understand that.
So,
but you'll hear from me the next time.
So are we revising the motion, or we voted already?
This would be a separate
on A.
item now.
So now we're just could I hear a motion for item E?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Souza, second by Councilman Pizzillo. Roll call.
Councilmember Osborne.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo.
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano.
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell.
Aye.
Councilmember Souza.
Aye.
Mayor Lord.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
All right, now we're on to the business. Let's start with A. Amend a portion of the Canyon Trails planned area development and approval of the use permit to allow self-storage facility on a portion of a commercial property. Conduct a public hearing to consider approving an amendment to the portion of Canyon Trails planned area amendment.
Wrong presentation.
So we'll open the public meeting. Staff presentation.
I'd like to have my presentation on Elmo, if I could. Yes. Thanks. Thank you, Mayor Lord. The 8-acre subject property is at the southeast corner of Roosevelt Street and 158th Avenue and is bounded by Parkway Village to the east, the infrastructure for a single-family subdivision to the south, and the I-10 Borrow Pit to the west, an established single-family neighborhood to the northwest, and the Walmart Supercenter to the northeast. As indicated on the agenda, this is a two-part application. The first part is to amend the Canyon Trails PAD to change the allowed land use from townhomes to neighborhood commercial on the entire 8 acres. The second part is for a use permit to develop a self-storage facility on the southern and eastern 5 acres of the site. 2 buildings containing neighborhood-serving uses are proposed to be located at the intersection. The applicants have a very detailed presentation regarding their project, the design of it, and the phasing of it. They also are going to explain the analysis they went through in determining the appropriate land use and the feasibility of the self-storage facility. So I'd like to tell you about the citizen review process in the P&Z hearing, if I could. For the citizen review meeting, we placed a legal ad, mailed notification to property owners well beyond the 500 feet that's required. 2 people attended that meeting. Although they seemed okay with the neighborhood commercial, they did have concerns about the self-storage facility. For the P&Z hearing, we again placed the legal ad, did the mailing, and posted the property. And it should be mentioned that we also did that for this meeting tonight. Those same 2 people attended the P&Z meeting, as well as another couple who lives nearby. The residents informed the P&Z of their objections to the self-storage facility, citing negative impacts upon their neighborhood. We have since heard from the landowner to the south, and he supports both the PAD amendment and the self-storage facility next to his future subdivision. Although the P&Z supported the change from townhomes to neighborhood commercial by a vote of 6-0, they did not support the self-storage facility. A motion to recommend approval of that failed by a vote of 2-4. The P&Z also cited negative impacts upon the neighborhood, and they voiced concerns about management and security of the facility. Staff believes that the proposed PAD amendment, with a limitation for neighborhood commercial uses only, will serve as a buffer between the higher intensity commercial uses fronting Estrella Parkway and the single-family neighborhood. The stipulations for the PAD amendment are in the ordinance that's attached to your staff report. To address the concerns of the residents in the P&Z about the self-storage facility, the use permit stipulations listed in the body of your staff report include but are not limited to a maximum building height of 30 feet, upfront development of the entire perimeter buffer, hours of operation limited to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., restricted gated access, operational only from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and a prohibition of barbed wire and 4 rent vehicles on the site. Also, there will be an on-site residential manager. Staff continues to support the self-storage facility and finds that with the recommended stipulations, it meets the required findings for approval of a use permit. Therefore, we are recommending approval of both the PAD amendment and the use permit. However, because you may not concur with that recommendation, we've included the separate listing of stipulations, one for the PAD amendment and one for the use permit. Each should be voted on separately. As I said, the applicants are here and have a presentation. I can answer questions now or after the presentation.
Go ahead. Well, real quick, you said I'm breaking the 2 up on the steps. You said the PAD and the?
The stipulations for the PAD amendment to go from townhome to commercial are in the ordinance.
That's one, okay.
The stipulations for the use permit for the self-storage facility are contained in the body of the staff report.
Okay, and that includes no RVs parking, is that what I heard?
There will be RV storage on site. What we didn't want was U-Haul 4 rent vehicles out along the street frontage. That was the
But would you be able
restriction on
to
4
see
rent
the
vehicles.
RVs from the street?
There's going to be an 8-foot perimeter wall around the entire facility, and the RVs will be set back quite a ways from that. During the second phase of the self-storage facility, that area will be enclosed, and it will be self-storage units within a building.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question. So what were the general concerns again from P&Z regarding
Impacts upon the surrounding neighborhood. It was cited that perhaps there could be a reduction in the value of the homes because of the adjacency of the self-storage facility. There were concerns about assurances that it would be managed well, it would be a secure facility, it would be a safe facility, it would not be an attractor of crime. It was, perceived as a negative use for the neighborhood.
Does staff think in the STIPs they addressed that, or did not totally address that?
We believe that we have, yes. We believe that through hours of operation, on-site resident manager, no barbed wire, the entire perimeter landscaping around the site will be put in place up front. We felt that we made this a use that could fit into the neighborhood.
I have a couple questions. First of all, you said and I'm looking at the aerial photography, to the north, it's an empty subdivision now. Is that the one you said the landowner said he had no problem with it?
To the south, actually.
To the south,
It's down
I'm
here.
sorry.
It's Travis Park. Yes, and Mark Voigt is the owner of that land now, and he sent us an email saying that, in fact, he felt that this would be a less intense than a standard commercial use, and that it might even be beneficial to the residents in the area and the businesses in the area, and he had no objections to it. He was concerned about possible lighting spillover,
This
but
would
as
be
you
my
know...
other question. What is the lighting, and was that a concern? Because I know you got Walmart right there with a lot of lights.
Right. And we, of course, will take this through the site plan approval process and deal with that, but as you know, our lighting ordinance prohibits the spillover onto adjacent properties.
Okay. Any other comment?
Yeah.
Councilman Souza?
Why would we vote yes on one stipulation and no on the other, as P&Z did?
It's a good
Well,
question.
because you have that right. You certainly have that right. They felt that the change from townhomes to neighborhood commercial was very appropriate for the area. They didn't think that townhomes would be a feasible development there, so they wanted to vote for that.
Why did they request that, the townhomes in the first place?
That was done many, many years ago when Canyon Trails first did the land use plan for this area and acres of surrounding area. It was designated as townhomes and has been and sat there vacant, undeveloped for quite some time since then. So these new owners, the Feldmans, have done their research, have done their marketing analysis, and have determined the neighborhood commercial uses with the self-storage would be better.
Okay, so if we change the area from residential to industrial,
Neighborhood commercial.
neighborhood commercial, okay. If the request for the storage unit goes down, what do they have in mind for replacing the storage unit? Do they have any idea?
Well, the PAD amendment that they are proposing has a very specific list of uses, and that is also attached to the ordinance, so that becomes part of the approved public record. They have a very specific list of uses from which they could choose. Neighborhood serving commercial uses. It's not going to be another Walmart by any stretch. It's going to be, maybe coffee shops, dry cleaners, maybe an insurance agency or something. So it would be more of those types of uses that would take up the remainder of the property.
Okay, all right. That answers my question, thank you.
Any other questions? City Clerk, do we have anybody that would like to respond from the public?
No, I have no speaker cards.
No speaker cards. Public hearing closed. City Clerk, read the ordinance.
Adopt ordinance 11-1235, providing for an amendment to a portion of the Canyon Trails planned area development to change the planned land use from townhomes to neighborhood commercial on 7.83 acres located at the southeast corner of Roosevelt Street and 158th Avenue, adopting supplementary zoning map number 10-003 to provide for the amendment, providing separability, and providing for an effective date.
Madam Mayor, the petitioners have a presentation
Oh.
that they wish to make.
Then so be it. I'm sorry that I was out of order. So what do we do now? Just not vote on the ordinance yet?
Reopen the public hearing.
Just,
let them speak.
okay. I'm reopening the public hearing, and please forgive me.
Mayor Lord, Tom Schoaf is here on behalf of the applicants to make a presentation.
I was looking right at you, Mayor Schoaf. I should have realized that it was yet to
Mayor
come.
Lord, let me say that I am particularly pleased to be the first business item in your reign as mayor, and I'm also particularly pleased to be the first business item on new Councilman Wally Campbell's seating. Thank you very much for the privilege of being here. I represent a family that owns this property and that has done a lot of work trying to find a way to use the property in a way that's consistent for the neighborhood and something that will bring value to the neighborhood. We believe that both components of this development will actually enhance the value of the neighborhood, and the landowner to the south, who is a developer of these types of residential properties, has recognized that this will provide a service to the residents, and it actually will help him in the development of that residential neighborhood to the south. Now, we have here with us tonight the owners of the property, and one of the owners, Jason Feldman, would like to make the presentation to you, and then if there are any questions, we'll be here to answer those questions. Mr. Feldman?
And again, Mr. Feldman, I apologize for closing the hearing.
Oh, no
on you.
problem. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mayor and council members, for allowing me to speak today. I think they're going to put the presentation up there. Hang on, wait for it. I'm not prepared to make that presentation. Or that one. I really don't want to look at myself. So. Well, if you can visualize, oh, there you go. Okay. Again, my name is Jason Feldman. My father and I purchased a parcel, as Ms. Craver explained, at Roosevelt and 158th Avenue. And we did so looking for a small parcel to develop for a family investment. And this was a good parcel for us because it wasn't too large. It was something that we could handle. It was the right size for our wallet. And it seemed to make sense to do an investment property at this point, like we talked about, to kind of transition between the higher density commercial that's to the east or right of there and the home community, residential communities surrounding us and our big lake that's dry to the west of it, or a pit. You can call it a pit. I'll call it a lake. It sounds better. And that's the area we're talking about. A is our parcel, and you can see that it kind of fits with that buffer. You got a kind of line of a commercial property to the right, and we felt it was a good transitional point to put something lower density to lower the traffic and have kind of less going on there than a higher density project. When we looked at the parcel and we were trying to decide what can we do with this parcel, we first looked at, under the current zoning, what we could do, and we actually went to a development company that has done a lot of commercial development, and we did a cost analysis, and we also looked at the site plan to see how you lay everything out, how many units you can get, and the cost per unit. That parcel at that time was only probably going to allow 80 to 90 units. It's actually going to be less because, as you see, that little corner on the other side of the street was going to be used for retention, and now that would had to have been on our side. So we get less units under the current zoning, probably less than 80 units. After looking at the numbers, determining the cost of construction, and not even including the cost of what we had for the land, we determined that it wouldn't be feasible based on pricing points for 30-plus years to get to the point where that would even make sense to build any residential townhomes there. Basically what we came up with was looking at all the different alternatives then, and it didn't seem that residential is going to be a suitable alternative. And I believe the staff and even the Planning and Zoning Commission agreed with that, that single family wouldn't work. It's too small of a parcel, and the cost per lot would be exorbitant. Multifamily wouldn't work because even at very high density, you're not going to get enough units to bring the cost per unit down, and that would also increase the density past where anybody wants. And I think an empty lot is basically what it would end up under a residential use. I don't think we could find a way to make any sort of residential development right there work. So we went about trying to think of alternative uses, and the idea that we had was to look into a neighborhood commercial, small neighborhood commercial, and some mini storage, because there's a lot of residences in surrounding the area. They all have homeowners associations, and they need a place for their stuff. We hired Ducks Real Estate Advisory Group, and they specialize in mini storage development. And in fact, the owner is the president and a board member of the Arizona Self-Storage Association. So they're very knowledgeable about storage facilities. They understand how they work. They understand if they will work, and we asked them to do a market study for us. We had them look at the competition in the area. They gave us all sorts of information about how storage facilities work, how they do their analysis, and they did a competitive study and determined, based on the numbers that they ran, that there is a current undersupply in the area of about 53,000 square feet of storage facility, broken up into different size units and whatnot. They also projected that there would be about 150,000 square feet of demand by 2013. And this study was actually done about 6 or 7 months ago, and it shows basically that in this competitive, on this parcel, in this competitive market within the radius that they determined, there's demand even in a down market for storage space. And as the subdivisions, and you saw the subdivision to the south is not complete, but as the subdivisions complete out, the demand will be even greater, especially considering there's homeowners associations, and it's very difficult to store your stuff. So there's a call for newer developed areas. There's a definite need for storage facilities. So we looked at why this location, and this location worked really well. They told us that the storage facilities are usually on 3 to 7 acres, no more. We asked, is ours too small or too big? And they said, 3 to 4 acres is perfect. We're using about 3.5 acres. We're not building a very large facility. We're going to build enough, probably won't even meet the demand numbers that I mentioned before by 2013, but we'll meet some of the demand in the neighborhood. And they also said this is great because, as they've seen, and again, he deals with nationally and internationally with storage facilities. He's on the board of the Storage Association, and one of our concerns was, well, we're not on a major street, or we're not a big parcel. Will it work? And he said that what they're seeing, the trend they're seeing now, is facilities that fit within the residential neighborhood that blend in and not really sticking out, and they do a lot of their local marketing to the residences in the neighborhood. So he felt that this was a perfect location for it because it did have that blending effect, and it kind of buffered. We use the term buffer a lot. It buffered the commercial to the right from the residences. So when we looked at this, we thought, our proposed zoning and use is the highest probability of that this parcel will get developed. Under the townhome use, we can't see developing that or having a developer who develops townhomes or apartments come in and want to develop that for quite a long time. So that's what we're asking for. And as Ms. Craver mentioned, They put some stipulations for some things that were brought up in a planning and zoning commission, and we're happy to do all of those things. In fact, we were planning on doing all of those things anyway, so it really wasn't an issue for us. So let me go over what the project is a little bit. The parcel is kind of odd shape, but it's basically going to be two components. First is a single-story self-storage facility, and you can see most of that's towards the south end of the property. And a low-density kind of, I put neighborhood retail. It's two buildings. It's going to be pretty small. It's not going to be a large shopping center or anything like that, and it's on 3.5 acres, and there'll be two buildings. The two components are going to be kind of independent of each other. The self-storage facility, like I said earlier, there's demand for storage, so it makes sense to go forward with some phased portion of the facility because there's current demand. The retail will be built when demand calls for new retail space, and then I would say retail office, neighborhood type space. And that would, we contemplate doing something with that later down the road when there's a need for it. So if you look at the self-storage project, as I said, most of this, it's built on about 4.5 acres, and it's mostly towards the back of the lot. Its longest borders along the commercial that's existing there, and there's normal retail as well as office, two-story office buildings, I believe. There's a hotel, that kind of stuff right there. And then on the south end, there's a large landscaping buffer. I know it doesn't look very big, but it's about 65 feet between the property line and any building that you're going to see. So from sight lines, and I know somebody mentioned lighting, sight lines, you won't even see the tops of the buildings from even if you're probably standing on the fence. Well, not standing on the fence, but standing like right at the fence or even on our property, you won't really be able to see building of lights or RV park or any vehicle that's parked there. So you can get an idea. This would be the entrance of the storage facility, and what we wanted to do was build a project that looked very residential in feel, use nice materials. I know when we think of storage facilities, and I have to say that our advisors, we talked a lot about storage facilities, and they kept telling me about all the new trends in storage facilities, and it's not like your old cement block brick that you really don't want to look at with a poster hanging on the side, please rent a storage facility. They are now producing very nice facades, architecturally sound designs, and trying to make them fit within the surroundings that they're in. In fact, they own one in Hawaii that's right on the water, and it doesn't. You would never know it was a storage till it looks like a club or something. But this is what our concept would have been, is to really have the front facade that's visible, to have a lot of architectural feel to it, residential feel, use stone, use different roof lines and things of that nature. It's a single-story facility, although you see a two-story there. That's simply the residence for the manager will be on top of like a retail store where they sell boxes or what have you. It is not a U-Haul where you'd be renting vehicles. It's simply a storage facility, so someone just might want to buy some boxes or fax something. They can use that as the office. And again, it'd be operated, you see a gate there, it'd be operated by gate, security gate on both entrances, and you wouldn't be able to access it at night. The first phase would be about 56,000, which is about the demand that we were projecting right now. There's a manager's residence with the office below, and the portion in green are the buildings that we're planning on doing first. And as you can see, it's fairly built out there. And then when demand, or as that facility gets to 85–90% built out, and there's call for a little more storage space, we would end up building on the expansion space. What you see is parking areas. It's not a large amount of parking, but we'd use it for something until we'd want to put more building there. And that's really the plan, is to have more storage facility. Also, the landscaping buffer that you see around the other piece of land would be built with the first phase. So it'll be very well landscaped and curbed, and that parcel would be treated so that there would be no dust issues, and it would be compacted. Like I said, as demand calls for it, you see the items in green there would be buildings that would replace the empty area, and we would add more storage at that point. And that would be determined by how quickly we get the storage facility leased up. If it leases up quick and it's ready for more storage, we do it immediately. If it takes a little time to lease it up, we do it down the road. The second component is the neighborhood retail or office, and what we conceived of here was a group of buildings that would allow type of businesses that don't necessarily need high traffic Estrella frontage and want to find maybe lesser rents to office or have their store to do their business, and that don't rely basically on drive-by traffic. And we felt that a neighborhood service center would be a great use between the two, and we incorporated, as you saw in the picture before, the storage front as part of that retail. It looked similar, and I do have a picture coming up of that. We would develop this independently of the storage facility. Obviously, as space fills up in the retail along Estrella and people are looking to want to be in this center of activity, because it's a nice center of activity with a lot of different things going on, residences and office buildings and retail and hotel, there would be demand. We anticipate there would be demand in the future for this type of space. Our concept here is to develop it at a lower cost to attract, to be able to attract those types of tenants and to target those specific businesses with lower rents than high traffic frontage. The way we anticipated designing this, as you can see, there's no rear truck delivery access because we're not trying to entice people with high inventories or high delivery types of businesses. We're thinking, and I'll go through kind of a list of what type of tenants we're thinking, but without having that kind of access, you by physicality, you're limiting the type of tenants that will want to be in that space. And then they're small spaces. I know it looks like a lot of space, but in reality, you're talking about 26,000 square feet of space, and it's not huge, and you'll have smaller spaces within there. And we anticipate having a lot of parking. The types of business we're talking about would be things like medical offices, dental offices, physical therapists, insurance, real estate, tax professionals could office out of there, dance studios, churches, gyms, tailors, those kind of businesses. Those are types of businesses that don't necessarily need Main Street frontage. They're the type of businesses that the residents know, hey, there's a little gymnastics place for my child. I could take them there after school. Or, a real estate professional or a dentist would use. And those are the types of tenants that we'd be looking at. And that's down the road. So as you can see by the visual, similar style. We used a lot of different roof pitches to look residential. Again, that is single story. They wouldn't go over 30 feet, and I don't think we even anticipated that it'd be that high. We tried to maintain that residential feel, and there's the landscape buffer as well of what we're talking about being built in first phase. So when looking at what the benefits are for this project, we felt that this was a much better use of the parcel, and we felt it generated revenue for the city versus a townhome or residential use. First, in the construction sales tax, for the actual development. And like we said, I think this has the highest probability of being developed under this use and would garner those taxes sooner rather than later. You'd also obtain rental taxes for both the storage facility and the retail once that comes in, and that would be an ongoing source of revenue as well. And then the businesses that operate in there would be providing a transaction privilege tax as well. So we felt it generated revenue for the city, which is of benefit to both the city and the residents around, because we always need the cities to be making money. We also felt that this type of project reduced the service load over the the residential use. We talked very carefully about the types of use for both storage facility and for the type of retail tenants that we're talking about, and they would use significantly less electricity, especially because they're operating only during business hours. And water sewer is pretty minimal, as storage facilities don't have, they'll have a couple toilets, and that's about it, a couple fixtures, and that's it. So it is a reduced load on the city services as well. We also had a traffic engineer do a traffic study of the project to determine what kind of traffic we generate. And they determined that this type of development won't increase traffic levels significantly over current levels. They looked at current levels of the project and felt that this wouldn't need or wouldn't cause issue. The storage facility itself is very low volume, based on a figure from our consultants. They said that this size of a facility would only generate about 19 cars a day. So that would be significantly lower than a townhome project, which would be a significant amount more of traffic, and it would also be at all times, day and night, coming in and out. And one of the other concerns that we had is we want to make sure we did something that benefited the neighborhood, and part of that was making sure whatever we designed fit really nicely and looked nice in the neighborhood, wasn't an eyesore. But we also wanted to know what our neighbors thought, and Mark Voigt, as Ms. Craver mentioned, supports this. He's very experienced with residential subdivisions. He's done quite a few in the Valley, and he felt that it was an excellent use and felt that it would benefit his home community greatly. And I tend to, lean towards his expertise, and I felt that he had a good point that, these are the types of services that people in the neighborhood want to be able to use and want to be able to have. And it served as a great buffer to the rest of the surroundings. So finally, when looking at what we're doing, we projected that if we were able to go ahead, we would more than likely want to get the site plan completed within a year, and then we would have phase one would be 12 to 18 months. So you're talking about 24 to 30 months to completion of the first phase of the project, and that's what we would expect or hope to accomplish. So thank you, Mayor and council members, and thank you for your time. If you have any questions.
Thank you for that comprehensive presentation. Any comments, any questions?
Can I see the footprint back up there again? Just a couple questions.
Well, of the whole thing?
Yeah, the whole thing.
Okay. You want with well. That?
Yes.
Or
okay.
with the storage?
No, that's probably fine. Below where the self-storage is that the property, the individual that wants to do the residential that's in agreement?
Below, yes.
Below.
That buffers that whole bottom part.
The
yes.
bottom part.
So he actually is adjacent. He has homes that back to our parcel.
Okay, below with the self-storage.
Yeah.
Now, to the right of it, to the
Would you
right
like,
of it.
would you like the, here, hold on, the map?
Yeah,
There you go, that helps.
I'm just trying to visualize it. Okay.
To the right of it, you have two-story office buildings. I think you have a couple pads there, and
Okay.
along the street, you have a retail, like, whatever it would be.
Is that where the RVs are going? Up against there?
No, the
Okay.
RVs would be, the RVs would be, do you see where those parking spaces are? It'd be two rows of RVs where a building will be in the future, to the left.
Oh, okay, to the left.
And then all of that is within, I know I put green around it, but all of, where you don't see the landscaping, where you see the landscaping end, there will be a wall, and the wall will have stone and trellises, and it'll have architecture, like really nice architectural feel. It won't be just a flat wall. It'll be a wall that would be broken up. It'll have a little bit different heights. It'll look like a building more than a
So you
wall.
won't see that well.
You won't see it, and we asked when we had them do the renderings. We asked them, well, can you give us a visual so that we get a real good sense of what you'll see over the wall? And they did, and we saw sky. And I said, well, where are the things? And they said, well, from that angle, you're not going to see anything because it's a significant amount of space where you're looking. So from the street, you're on the 158th, you've got a minimum 30-foot setback, but it's actually bigger than that because we're using that for retention. So we put where we'll be required to put retention, we wanted to make sure we put buffer so you have enough landscaping and retention in there so you won't really see. I know one of the concerns is will you see RV, and I don't believe that you'll see RV. And our goal is to not have any RV parking. Our goal is to have storage because you don't really make money on RV parking. You make money on interior storage units. So the goal is to have a great manager that'll rent the storage facility up, and so we can build the rest of it out.
So then the actual commercial buildings in Phase 2, they're up to the right of the red line there.
Let me pull that up. The red line, obviously, the in and out of it that share, although there's a gate and whatnot, but when you pull into the top part, you can get into both the storage facility and to the center. And then the buildings, like as you can see, they're kind of hugging the property line. Now there is a walkway, you can walk back there, and there's the proper amount of space for fire code and things of that nature. But what we wanted to make sure we did was we don't want to entice big. So if we own it or if we don't own it or whatever in the future, we wanted to make sure we designed it so that only a certain kind of tenant can will
No, I
want
can
to be
appreciate
in there.
that. Yeah. The other question I have, I guess, as far as the site, because if you go to Roosevelt, there is a building there that's empty. I guess in that cluster, kind of different types of painted. What do you call it? Sidewall. And I don't know if you're familiar with one. It's you have the hotel. Mm-hmm. And then from the hotel over there, I guess what I'm getting at is the site plan, because there's a building in there right now that's empty that I think the bank has, and the color of the brick is multicolor, and it's not a very pretty building.
Yeah.
Okay, needless to say.
You're talking about the building I've been claiming.
Probably,
Yeah, okay.
but I guess my question is it looks really good what we're seeing on here, and maybe it's a question of staff. How can we make sure that's what it looks like when we bring it back? Does it come back before us for a site plan, or is that something that's staff?
I know because
The site plan will go back through staff. It doesn't come back to you, but I will certainly make note of your concerns and make sure that we get what they're showing us we're going to get.
Okay,
Joe,
good.
I've made so many complaints on that brick. I think they have it written down several times.
Okay, they know which one we're talking
Yes,
about
they know
then.
exactly which one you're talking
do.
about.
Okay.
Is there any more response here?
Sir, how many, besides the two people that complained, and to the PN, no, I'm talking to you, sir.
Oh, me?
Yeah. Beside the two residents that complained at the P&Z, how many other homes in that area are going to be affected by the wall or the RV arrangement?
that are adjacent,
Just give me an idea.
right now, there are no homes. But in the future, there's like maybe 12 lots. And we talked with Mark Voigt, who owns those lots. He's the one that will have to eventually sell those homes. And if it was an issue, if he felt it was an issue, I'm sure he would have addressed it to us to make some changes. We showed him these plans. We met with him. And again, he liked what we planned. He liked the landscape buffer. He liked the space in between. He didn't feel it was at all a negative to selling those 12 or 13 or how many ever lots it would be. And we felt comfortable that he was happy with the development.
But the two people that complained, the two homeowners that complained, they were there. How many people are associated
None.
with them? Huh?
How many, are they residents that own one of those lots?
They're residents now.
They didn't have any other ones, just two people.
There were just two people.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
If we could go back to the Elmo, please. Councilman Sousa, the residents who attended the meeting live up in this area up here in this developed subdivision. Mr. Voigt owns this property down here, and he will eventually be developing
thank
that.
you.
But right now, there are no homeowners there.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Loretano?
Just briefly, I have a couple questions for you. With regard to the RV, you're not planning, at least what I couldn't find anything here, to have RV shelters or anything.
No shelters. We're not looking to. There's no hookups. It's not an RV
Yes,
park.
that's what I mean, but there's not going to be any dumps or anything for RVs or anything.
No, it is not there for use of RV at all. It's there for completely for storage only. So.
And there's not going to be any, like, I know a lot of them will let RVs have like a waste to dump into the sewer, but you're not going
No,
to
we're
have
not
that.
going to have that there. So if
Strictly
they,
storage.
I'm assuming there would be a rule that you can't store your RV here
live
unless
there.
you've cleaned it first and it's just being stored. Yeah.
Okay.
Nobody will be able to be on site once business hours are closed.
Okay.
They'll be so you won't have people in RVs doing anything. Yeah.
And so that could be RVs and boats, I assume, all recreational
Boats or
vehicles.
quads or whatever, like something wouldn't construct. I have no idea what it would be, but yeah.
And your storage facilities, they're going to be the ones. I do like your site plan as long as we get what we see, then I'm
Right,
okay with it.
right.
But they're not going to be. They're going to be what? Different sizes. They're going to have the corrugated doors.
On the inside, the height of the buildings will probably be all the same. I think they're 18 feet. There's a specific size, so that you
kind
have
of
the right
standard
size
you
doors.
see?
Yeah, and you will have some roll-up doors. A portion of it, roll-up doors are actually more in demand. People like being able to drive up, put their stuff in, roll the doors down. There will also be interior walkways where you'll have storage as well. And the roll-up doors would be within the property. You won't be able to see them from outside the property. And yeah, they would be standard roll-up doors, I guess. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
I walked this property today.
Okay.
And I walked it again yesterday, coming from the opposite direction. I understand you want to put your storage facility at the south end. Is that where the entrance will be?
No.
Okay.
The entrance.
Can you show me on the map
Sure.
where your entrance
Sure.
is going to be?
Do you have my site plan? There's basically the main entrance here. So when you come in here, you'll see right here is the manager's office.
Is that off of Roosevelt?
That's off of Roosevelt.
Okay.
And then so when you pull in, we purposefully designed and moved everything so that there's a large enough space to pull a truck all the way out of sight line for this driveway for the retail. And we can queue it there there's a gate right here, so you can't get in except for that gate right here.
Okay.
And then we have a full, circulation, and there's another gate that's an exit out here
On 158?
on 158, and that's gated as well right there.
Okay, then you won't have any traffic impediment at the corner of Roosevelt.
No, we
at the
want
stop sign.
to limit the activity to where the commercial, the Walmart's right up here, We want to keep
Right.
that over there and just people leaving.
Because
And
that's
like
a
I said,
busy,
it's
busy part right
Yeah.
there. with Folks coming in to go into the subdivision and to go left
Right,
down
right.
Van Buren.
And again, you're talking about less than 20 cars a whole
Sure.
during the day, so it's not it shouldn't be too much traffic. So
Thank you.
Are we finished? So, City Clerk, procedurally, we've already have a motion, so I can close this, the public meeting. Public meeting closed, and the motion was already on the floor, and it, is that, yeah, and we had first.
I didn't.
Oh, you did not? Okay, well then, could I hear a motion, please, to adopt ordinance?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
So Councilman Loretano, motion, who seconded?
I did.
And Councilman Osborne, second. Roll call. Oh, excuse me,
minute.
discussion?
Just real quick, just ask staff, again, because of, that brick building that we're all very familiar with, that there's, gets captured in the minutes that what we saw, as far as the look and the standards, that when you get to your site, because I know it's going to go through you, that that's what we get.
Sir, we will make sure of that.
Okay.
Well, I also drove the area. I went back and walked the area. I looked at the shopping center and all the surrounding areas, and I thought this was absolutely the right thing to do. I like the design. You certainly have given us the most complete presentation that I've seen in the last year. There's nothing left for anybody to have to ask. I think we have it all in our minds of what you're going to do. I think we're ready now. Is that right for the roll call?
Vice Mayor Pizzillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano,
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell,
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa,
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne,
Aye.
Mayor Lord.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Okay, now, to approve a use permit, we need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I hear a motion from Councilwoman Loretano and a second from Councilman Souza.
Mayor Lord, I assume that's including the stipulations listed in the COAC?
Yes.
I would
Stipulations
add
1
that
through
to my
16.
motion.
Do you add that to your motion? Okay, because I thought that was already done, but okay.
We'll add the stipulations.
We'll add it to
Just
the
be
motion.
clear.
Is that fine?
Yes.
Are we clear before I go all in favor?
Approving the use permit, including the stipulations 1 through 16.
Yes. Thank
All
you.
right. So no roll call on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I think everybody, that probably was the longest presentation and discussion we've ever had since this council formed. All right, let's go to item B. Selection of a financial audit firm and accept or approve the proposal to provide the audit services. Larry Lang?
Thank you, Mayor Lord. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Our auditor, Henry and Horn, has completed their 3-year contract with the June 30th, 2010 audit that was completed and approved by you in December. As a result of that, we met with the audit committee to review the status of the audit contract. And the audit committee, just for the public's benefit and maybe for you, consists, or that we met with, is Vice Mayor Pizzillo and Councilmember Osborne. Mayor Lord has been involved since the inception of the audit committee, but during this time period was not on the city council and did not participate in this particular dialogue. Regardless, the audit committee directed staff to issue a request for proposals from qualified CPA firms to perform the audit. We did issue those proposals. We received proposals from 4 different firms. Staff, and in this case by staff very specifically, Deputy City Manager Dahlke and myself independently reviewed all 4 proposals. We made a recommendation to the audit committee. Our independent reviews had the same top 2, with 3rd and 4th being different between us, so we made that recommendation to the audit committee. And the recommendation was for Henry and Horn, who has been providing the service, and their contract just left. Larson Allen was the name of the other firm that we discussed as in the top two, and both do quality job. Some of the comments that our recommendation included was that Henry and Horn had a manager on site through all of the field work, which is very heavy in the staffing, but it is very nice to have someone that senior during the field work. And they bring in a whole entourage of people, but to have a manager that is making sure everything is dealt with there is very helpful. They're also familiar with our systems, our processes, and our software. So rather than having to spend time in that part of the audit, that frees them up to maybe do some of the other extra work that the audit committee might ask of them to look at specific sides of the transaction. The audit committee has existed now for, I think we've been through 2 complete audits with this audit committee, and each time the audit committee has reviewed with the auditor the audit plan prior to the audit, the results of that audit plan as well as the results of the audit itself, and have presented that to the entire city council. That has been extremely successful, and Henry and Horn has been very, very receptive of working with us on that. So at the recommendation of the audit committee, I am recommending that the council award the 3-year contract to Henry and Horn. If there are any questions, be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Larry, for your presentation. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to, motion to select the audit firm of, what's it, Henry and Horn?
Henry and Horn.
And Horn?
I'll second.
We had a first by Councilman Pizzillo and a second by Councilwoman Osborne. Open for discussion.
Just a quick comment. As a member of the committee that went through the selection process and interview process, and actually being able to sit down with this group when we actually asked them questions as a member of that committee and delved into the actual audit itself, because I think we're one of the few cities that actually have a committee that reviews and makes these type of selections. I was impressed with Henry and Horn, and I think they'll make a great audit, and I feel very comfortable with that selection.
Any other discussion? All right, let's take it to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Let's go on to C, which is a presentation of the 2010 General Plan Progress Report. Katie Wilkin.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. I'm happy to be before you once again to present the annual report on the general plan. Just quickly for some background, the general plan is required by state statute, and it sets the vision for the city of Goodyear, and the last vision statement is on the box on the slide. And then it sets all the policies and goals on how the city achieves that vision. It's often referred to as a blueprint for growth and development, and it sets the foundation for all the policies, codes, and plans related to growth and development, such as the zoning ordinance or the CIP. It involves a lot of public participation, and it must be ratified by citizens. Because it's such an important document, state statute also requires that an annual update be provided to council and the public on implementation of the plan. And this just allows us to review the last year of implementation, look forward to the next year. It increases accountability and once again provides opportunity for participation. Our current general plan is the 2003-2013 general plan. The creation was overseen by a 21-member General Plan Advisory Committee. It was ratified by voters on November 4th, 2003, and won the Arizona Planning Association Award for Best Comprehensive Plan. And this is a list of our General Plan Committee members, and they worked diligently, 21 meetings over 16 months, so we're always grateful for that work they put in. So, again, as you know, usually the council works with the city limits, but when we work with the general plan, we're working with the municipal planning area, which are agreed upon boundaries that all the cities in Maricopa County have, so that we're planning for the future. And so to look where we've come from November 2003 when we adopted the plan till today, our population has almost doubled. It's now over 66,000 as of January 1st. The number of units in the city have also more than doubled. They're now over 25,000. The city size has increased by 62% to 191 square miles, and the planning area has increased by 83% to 247 square miles. Now, the reason for some of these increases is due a lot to approving general plan amendments. And since adoption of the plan, 31 plan amendments were adopted. 18 of those were major, 13 were minor, and 4 of those 31 were text amendments. And so those general plan amendments have added 112 square miles to the general plan area. Of course, the most significant of those being that Sonoran Valley general plan amendment. And the amendments have also added the potential for 108,000 dwelling units and the potential for 236,000 residents. And so when we look at build-out, and just again, the build-out is for the planning area, not our city limits. Dwelling unit build-out is now over 253,000, and so we're currently about 10% built out. And population build-out is over 625,000, and so we're currently about 11% built out. And when we look at that by geographic area, there's about 28,000 residents north of I-10, so that area is about 67% built out. There's another 28,000 residents between I-10 and the Gila River, so that area is about 40% built out. There's about 9,300 residents south of the Gila to Patterson, which is Estrella and the Rainbow Valley area, so that area is only 3% built out. And then there's about 100 residents south of Patterson in the Sonoran Valley area, so that area is not significantly built out. And as we reach build out, as you can see, our population is going to shift south. Currently, about 85% of our residents live north of the Gila, but once we get to build out, only 18% of our residents are going to live north of the Gila, whereas 82% will live south. So basically, our population is going to flip-flop as we reach build out. So then looking at the housing market, foreclosures have been a big topic lately. Now in a normal year, foreclosures do make up about 0.5% of the total units in Goodyear. But we saw those, we saw those ramp up in late 2007, and they appear to have peaked at almost 6% in 2009. We did see some good news. In 2010, they were down 21%. We are seeing nationally, though, that some of the ARMs are resetting this year, so we might see another little spike of foreclosures this year. We'll just have to see how the market handles that. And so during this foreclosure crisis, we've seen about 3,750 foreclosures, and about 450 would have been normal, so we've seen about 3,300 foreclosures outside of normal. However, the good news is that of June 2010, there was only 328 bank-owned homes in Goodyear. And so looking at that information, plus the Arizona MLS, it shows that foreclosures in Goodyear are selling. And when we just look at sales, we might think, wow, that's a lot of foreclosures, but it's really necessary for market recovery for those foreclosures to go through the process. Single-family permitting, we're seeing growth shift west. A lot of the East Valley cities are approaching build-out. Some kind of have hit build-out. And so Goodyear's share of single-family permits has increased. 2005, 2006, it was about 4.5%. In 2010, we had 7.2% of the permits. So we're growing a lot faster than we were. Oh, sorry. And now census data. Census data was just recently released. And I'm sure you've all seen that our population count came in at 65,275. We have just over 25,000 units in the city. Goodyear is now the 14th largest city in Arizona. That was up from the 21st. We grew 245% from 2000 to 2010. 41% from 2005 when the special census was conducted to 2010, and that represents an average annual growth of 13.1% between 2000 and 2010. There's also, you probably are well aware by now that the 2010 census did not include the long form like previous censuses did, and that's because that's been replaced by the American Community Survey, which is an ongoing monthly survey. Any given month, any citizen can receive this, so that data is kept more up to date. Now, for communities our size, 20,000 to 65,000, only 3-year data is available because that's how long it takes to get a significant sample size. And it's important to note that this data compared to decennial census data is much more descriptive. There's larger margins of error. It's really just showing us trends rather than pinpointing actual data points. But we went ahead and took a look at it. For the 2007-2009 American Community Survey is the most recent data. And what we're seeing, first of all, is that our population is getting younger. In 2000, our average age was 36.5, and now it's closer to 33. Our population is becoming more educated. There's a higher percentage of people with high school diplomas and bachelor degrees. And our median housing values are down, but they are still up from 2000. And I think this data point really illustrates the benefit of American Community Survey data, because if we just looked at the 2000 and the most recent data, we'd think housing prices went up. But with that data each year, it shows us what happened in between those two times. We also took a look at Goodyear compared to cities across the valley. And that second bullet point are all the cities that were included. We couldn't include the smaller cities because that 3-year data is not available for those smaller cities. But what we saw was that Goodyear has the 3rd highest median household income in the valley and the highest in the West Valley. And you can see we're just under Fountain Hills and Gilbert, and we're far above in the West Valley, and it's far above the median income for the state and the county. We also have the 3rd highest median owner-occupied home values in the valley and the highest in the West Valley. And you can see Scottsdale and Fountain Hills are solidly in 1st and 2nd, but then Goodyear's in 3rd, and Goodyear has the highest in the West Valley and also higher than the state and the county. We also have the 4th lowest unemployment rate in the valley and the lowest in the West Valley, tied with Peoria, and it's lower than the average for the state and the county. And this is much higher than it was in 2000, but as you can see, Goodyear may be faring well compared to other valley cities. Another important topic is our business statistics. The census also collects information on business. They have information to 2008. And it's showing that jobs and business establishments have grown during this economic downturn. All industries have grown since 2006, except, wouldn't be a real big surprise, real estate and rental leasing industry. And according to the number of establishments, not number of employees, there's a big difference. Our top 3 largest industries are healthcare, and then retail trade, and then accommodation and food service. Another indicator to look at is the jobs to housing ratio. In 2009, it was 0.7, and it has gone down slightly to 0.69. Our jobs have increased. It's just that our housing has been building faster than our jobs. And the general plan states the goal is between 0.67 and 0.89. So even during one of the worst economic downturns, we've still managed to keep our jobs to housing ratio right at the general plan goal. MAG also calculated what that would be at build-out, and they projected that we would have a 1.19 jobs to housing ratio at build-out. And any housing ratio over 1 is a very positive indicator that a community is more self-sufficient rather than being a bedroom community. So our land use plan appears to be on target for having a healthy community. So now we've looked at where we are, so looking toward the future. First, I just want to take a moment and kind of tell you where we are nationally. The census showed that growth really is shifting west. This little map up there is the apportionment map, and you can see the Midwest and eastern states are losing population while the west and southern states have been gaining population. We've also heard forecasters talked a lot about Phoenix and Tucson merging into this megapolitan area, and they've projected it could be as much as 10 million by 2040, which would be a doubling of the population of this region. And again, as I said, East Valley cities are approaching build-out, so that growth is, some of it's going to hit in the West Valley. So looking 25 years in the future to 2035, we just came up with some growth scenarios. Now, if we had 2% growth, which is the growth rate we had last year, which is the lowest growth rate we have had in the history of Goodyear due to the market, we would still add 40,000 residents over the next 25 years. And I'm sure a city like Detroit would love to see 40,000 residents come to their city. But that's very unlikely. You know, things are going to get better. We heard that all the time. So we went ahead and looked at what a 5% growth rate would look like. and that would double our population. However, we also looked to MAG, and MAG created projections to 2035 for all cities in Maricopa County, and they project that we could reach 358,000 by 2035, and that would require 7.4% growth rate. Now, I know this looks like a lot of growth, and that looks like a spike upward, but we could also assume 12.1% growth, which would have us reaching build-out by 2030. And I know that seems like insane growth, but that was our average annual growth rate between 1990 and 2000, 2 decades which we had booms and one of the largest recessions in certainly my lifetime. And so even during this time, we had 12.1% average annual growth. So now that 7.4% that MAG projected doesn't seem so outrageous. But just to put that in perspective, if we hit MAG's projections, we would double our population by 2017, then double again in 2029. And even when we reach 358,000, we'd still only be 57% built out. So we're not going to, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what growth scenario we're going to hit. The point is that we should be prepared for any scenario, and we do have a lot of growing left to do in the city of Goodyear. Now looking at the implementation program, the general plan included an implementation program that was updated in 2009. It's a 5-year plan, and it identified activities that would help implement the goals and policies in the plan. And an update of that is listed in your in the report that was provided to you, and we listed a status and a short little progress. So I won't go through each of those individually, but just to give you an overview, there are 33 activities, 2 have been completed, 12 are underway, and another 19 are planned. And there are 10 activities scheduled for completion this year in 2011. There are also a lot of other additional planning efforts going on. I'm not going to go through each of these individually. There's an update in your report, but there is one specific one. I did want to call out the general plan update. A general plan must be updated every 10 years, and so our original deadline to update was November 2013. However, the state legislature extended that deadline to July 2015 to assist cities while funds are tight and our budgets are tight. And so the update will take about 3 years to complete, and staff is currently working on creating a schedule. We're trying to create a schedule that works around elections that are already planned to save costs. And we are going to bring that proposed schedule, work plan, and public participation plan to council for discussion later this year. But just to give you kind of the 10,000-foot overview, right now staff is already doing data collection, trying to get maps and everything in place that the community will need during the general plan update. And so we're in that first phase right now. When we take the plan to the public, when those committee meetings start, that's the real plan creation portion. That itself will probably take 1 to 1.5 years to create. And then once the draft plan is created, with all the required public hearings, and then after council adoption, there's a 120-day waiting period before it can go to the citizens to be ratified. So that'll take another 10 to 12 months, and that's how you add up to 3 years pretty quickly. Again, I just want to say that this report and the presentation will be available on the city's website. We also have a lot of other great information on the city's website. And I encourage all citizens to contact community development staff with any questions they have. They're thinking about purchasing a home. They just want to know what that vacant piece of land near them is going to be. That's what we're there for. We're happy to help our citizens and let them know what's going on with the city. So that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to take any questions. Staff does request that council accept the report. And Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend that the council accept the report at the February 16th meeting.
Thank you, Katie. A nice presentation. Could I ask for a motion, please?
Motion that council accept the report.
Second?
Second.
Joe Pizzillo making the motion. Councilwoman Osborne, second. All those in, discussion? Sorry about that. Any discussion?
Just a lot of great information in the report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joanne? All right, let's put it to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Let's go to item D, accept Councilmember Frank Cavalier's resignation and follow process for appointment. Roy?
Good evening, Mayor, Lord, members of the council. Item you have in front of you this evening is actually two items for housekeeping and moving forward with replacing the seat vacated by former Councilmember Cavalier. As we're all aware, on March 18th, Councilmember Cavalier submitted a letter of resignation. Since Councilmember Cavalier was in the second half of his term of office, according to the city charter, the council is given the authority to, by vote, replace that seat through an direct appointment process, and no special election is required in this matter. So tonight there are two action items in front of you. The first is the council needs to formally recognize that Councilmember Cavalier has submitted his resignation to the council, and recognize that as of tonight's date, a vacancy formally exists within the council. So the first action item you have this evening would be for a motion to accept Frank Cavalier's resignation. I would ask that you strike effective March 18, 2011. Just say motion to accept Frank Cavalier's resignation and recognize that a vacancy exists on the council as of today's date. So the first action would be to take action on that.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a motion?
Before you make the motion,
Oh.
Mayor Lord, I do have someone who has requested to speak
Oh,
on
very-
this item.
Very good, okay.
So you can make the motion then, or you can do the speaker now if you'd like.
I'm s-
Jennifer Barber.
Good evening again, Mayor Lord and council members. I'm Jennifer Barber, and I hope I still live at the same address as I did about an hour ago. I will be very brief on this. Once again, the citizens of Goodyear find themselves wondering who will be appointed to fill a vacant council seat. And once again, the citizens of Goodyear have been stripped of the opportunity to vote for the candidate whom they feel would best serve the people of Goodyear. In fact, under the current policy, citizens have very little opportunity to have a voice in this process. City of Goodyear's charter doesn't require that candidates be publicly interviewed for the position. In the city charter, policy 98-2, article 1, section 15D, number 4, states that interviews are only conducted if the subcommittee deems them to be appropriate. The past couple of times our city has been in this position, interviews were not conducted. This policy needs to be amended, and here's why. 1, citizens are left without an opportunity to learn about the people who want the position and who may end up landing the position. 2, the media, which is our eyes and ears of the public, are unable to fact-check the candidates' resumes nor question the candidates, as is done during an election cycle. 3, the public may know very little about the appointees' positions on some of the most poignant issues facing our city. 4, an interview might help the subcommittee learn more about the unique qualities that the candidates bring to the table that can't or aren't stated on paper applications and resumes. And finally, interviewing candidates might bring to light some great ideas and solutions to issues facing our city that we wouldn't otherwise know about. I ask you to take a look at the sheet that has just been passed out to you. Last Wednesday night, I did a quick Google search to find out what other cities do in a similar position. And these include cities that are smaller and larger than us. I'll run through these quickly. In Concord, California, they have a population of 122,000 people. Candidates have to submit an application and be interviewed at a public hearing. All candidate applications are posted on their city's website. In Bowie, Maryland, a city smaller than ours, they have a news story about the council thinking about pulling an all-nighter just to interview its 25 candidates. I know it doesn't sound like fun, but they're making the effort. In Gresham, Oregon, interviews are conducted with all applicants. Tucson, Arizona, 14 candidate applications and resumes are posted online. Council members publicly question the office seekers. In Linwood, Washington, City Council narrowed a list of 14 candidates down to 8, and each candidate is interviewed for 30 minutes during the City Council. All of the finalist information is posted in the paper and on the city's website. Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The finalists participate in a public forum hosted by the City Council and moderated by the League of Women Voters. And finally, Escondido, California. Candidates filled out a 10-question survey, and what I found out was to be most interesting is that the survey asked the applicants about their take on a local ballpark. Finally, in Omaha, Nebraska, my hometown, candidates have to submit a letter, a resume, and a petition with 50 signatures. Applicants are narrowed down to 5 and then publicly interviewed at a council meeting. My intention is not to prolong or complicate the process. My intent is to make certain that there's no question about the process or the timeline and to ensure that each applicant has a fair shake at the position. On the flip side, I believe the public should have an opportunity to learn about the candidates and have an opportunity to voice their opinions about the candidates. I appreciate your consideration of this request.
Thank you. Could I hear a motion to accept Frank Cavalier's resignation effective 2011?
I move we accept his resignation effective March 28th.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
A first by Councilman Joe Pizzillo and a second by Councilwoman Joanne Osborne. We'll take it to a vote. All in the
Madam
favor?
Mayor, I'd like to make a comment, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Thank you for reminding me.
Okay. I'm taking exception to the resignation letter that was submitted by former council member Cavalier, and I'll read his resignation. This will, to whom it may concern, this will serve as a letter of resignation for the position of city councilman for the city of Goodyear, Arizona, effective immediately. My philosophy for the growth and sustainability of the city of Goodyear is not aligned with the direction or vision of the present city council. I believe that the council has been amiss in working with the historic neighborhoods and business communities. Now, this is the exception that I'm taking to this termination letter, or resignation letter. We just had an example of how we communicate, or how this council has communicated with neighborhoods, and with the presentation of the park director and the individual that is working on the garden in his area. This is the city of Goodyear working with the neighborhoods to enhance the living conditions of that neighborhood and give the occupants an opportunity to really show their gardening. Now, I've been with the Historic Goodyear Association for 12 years, the tenure that I have had in this council. And during that time, we have had members of this organization, this administration, both from the police, the fire, the council reps, were at each meeting, representative of the city, the community development, the code enforcement, and COD. We have had, every time they've had a serious complaint, we've had people attending the meetings, and they addressed the members of that association. And we responded emphatically. And I don't know where he came off by saying that we don't communicate with our neighborhoods. And that I really took an exception to this termination. Frankly, I think the editorial papers pretty much hit it on the head. And that's enough I have to say. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments? Let's take it to vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Let's take it to number 2, to appoint a subcommittee to review the applications for appointment to the vacant council seat and conduct interviews of applicants as deemed necessary to make a recommendation for the appointment to the entire city council. Could I hear a motion, please?
So moved.
I'm sorry. I obviously was silent, so I obviously appoint a motion to appoint. Is that what we're doing? A subcommittee. Is that what I missed?
The next step in
Thank
tonight's
you.
process.
Help me here. It's getting late.
Now that we've formally recognized there is a vacancy on the
Okay.
council, the next step for the council is to move towards filling that vacancy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And
Yes, okay.
as the speaker recognized just a minute ago, the council has previously adopted a policy on when faced with these circumstances, how they move forward in filling that seat. Now, the one challenge that we have is under the charter, we only have 30 days from the date that we recognize that a vacancy exists to fill that seat. Otherwise, we have to move to a special election, and there's a significant cost and time involved in that process. So the council, if they wish to exercise their option to fill through direct appointment, we only have 30 days in which to do that. So consistent with the policy the council has previously adopted, the next step would be for the council to appoint a subcommittee of 3. We'll open the process for applications as early as tomorrow. The city clerk will have the council vacancy application, which is contained in your packet, available for interested parties to pick up or download from the website. One thing I would ask is this is the application we've used, I think, in the last several occasions in which this has arisen. If there's anything you would like to see changed, let us know this evening, and we can certainly make those changes and have that incorporated into the application and available for the public. Otherwise, we'll use the one we've used the last at least 2 to 3 times.
And do we suggest that after we make the motion to appoint?
Well, you can tell me now or after you make a motion to appoint. Then you'll need to discuss which members of the council you want to appoint to that
And we do
subcommittee.
that after the motion.
After the motion
All right,
as well.
before the motion, since there was a question brought up on interviews, do we want to, make sure that, say, example, the top 3 are interviewed? Your top ranked 3 people that are interviewed for this? So that-
Interviewed by the subcommittee or interviewed by
By the
us as a whole?
subcommittee, by the subcommittee.
I believe Ms. Barber's examples here seem to all be in a public forum. That if the subcommittee were to look at, say 25 applicants, and you narrowed it down to 3 or 5, and then those final finalists would then come in front of us as a body in a public forum and interview them in that regard. How does anybody feel in that process? Well, this is new, so I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. How do you guys feel about something?
So I agree with what she's saying. So you bring forth, so when you question, in an interview, you're doing some very definite, pertinent questions.
Mm-hmm.
So are you ready to have that in a public forum? Or are they ready to have it in a public forum? What I found on the interviews, when you put it public, it's the applicant coming forward that's very hesitant to sit in front of a group of people and talk about a job applicant. That's application. So that's my experience in it. So how do we make it comfortable? What did we have last time? We had 3 people?
Two last
people. And if we go so that they come forth here in front of the entire public to have their interviews, how do you think that will play? Do you think we'll get more people applying or less?
If I could just say, because I kind of went through the process, and I think actually that would have been a good idea. Because I always felt I had people say things to me, maybe not appropriately, because there wasn't an interview process.
Because it wasn't
It wasn't public, yeah.
Okay.
And I think that actually opens up the transparency. I don't think if 25 people, you could go through all 25, because I'm sorry, that's not really fair to all 25 people, but maybe the subcommittee narrows them down.
Yeah.
And then the final couple, and maybe you do it at the table, so you're not up here and down there. It's kind of, and then people can just sit back there and watch, but you still have that kind of how you have the table set. As going through it and not going through an interview, I think that might actually be helpful, especially since it's, a 2-year spot now? That's just my...
Mayor Lord, we have built time into your timeline, the proposed timeline, for at least the subcommittee to conduct preliminary interviews, if that's what the subcommittee or the council would like to have. Certainly, this is your process. If you want to conduct public interviews, that's allowable. If you want to conduct private interviews under the law, that's allowable.
So we need to make this decision.
This is
Now?
your process. You can. I would suggest that you appoint your subcommittee and give them direction, and you probably want to have the discussion this evening, which is allowable, on how you want to proceed in filling the vacancy. So it's fair game as far as setting those parameters this evening.
And the 30 days started as of tonight because you accepted the resignation as of tonight.
Our clock is ticking, so we tried to schedule a expedited application process to allow enough time for the subcommittee to conduct interviews, depending on if there was a large number of applicants. You certainly may want to conduct interviews to narrow that field before making recommendations to the entire council. Obviously, if you only have 2 applicants, it's certainly a different matter. But
So do we name the subcommittee before the motion is taken place, or
Well, you
do
may
I
wanna
make a
dis-
motion first?
I think you want to discuss who you want to put on that subcommittee first, have that discussion.
I think that's right.
Once you've probably named that subcommittee, you may want to have a discussion as what your expectations are and what
Okay.
the process is.
All right.
Can I
yes.
just add
Yes.
something
Yes.
to follow what Councilmember Loretano mentioned? Last time, I guess, when we went through this for the 2-year thing, I think I recall in this position, and again, I've done it many times as a budget manager, an interview process. And typically, what you do is you try to pick from your applications a number that you can interview, and I would view that as a subcommittee. Depending on how many, you would maybe pick the top X. We would typically not interview any more than 8 if we got much more than that coming through there. Then there was always a recommendation for a second interview, which was your top 2 or 3, and then when your top 2 or 3, they were interviewed and a selection was made. I don't know why we can't do something along those lines. The subcommittee, and depending again how many people actually apply, because if you only have 2 people apply, and then you can't give a top 3, so it all varies on how many you have on there. But I don't see a problem like an interview process. If you want to be in the public eye, I don't see a problem with somebody asking you questions in the public. That's just where I kind of come from, because you're going to get it all the time anyway. So, and in fact,
It's true, Joe. You're preparing them.
yeah, and not only that, if you're running for office, you're getting much more scrutinized than if you're actually being appointed. So, from my personal perspective, I think if you have whatever subcommittee you come up with, pick a top. Depending on how many, I don't know how you qualify it, because if only 2 apply, it's kind of hard to give the top 3. But I think if you have over 5, maybe you could come back with a top 3, and then with the top 3, then they have an interview process. I'm concerned on the timeline because we've got the 30 days, and if we don't meet the 30 days, then it costs us $70,000 to have an election.
Yes.
So I think it's important, whatever timeline we come up with, that we meet that 30 days, so we don't end up spending another $70,000 of the taxpayers' dollars. So to follow where you are, Councilmember Loretano, I'm with you on that.
So are we saying, Councilwoman Loretano, you'd be a part of this committee?
Mayor, I would probably have to, I may be starting a 3-week trial next week, and if we're on a tight timeline, I would not want to, because this is going to have to be a lot of time
All
frame.
right. Well, then let me start with Councilman or Vice Mayor Pizzillo. Would you agree to be on the committee?
I've done it before. I was going to see if anybody else wanted, but if you want me there,
Well, we need.
if you want me there, I'll do it.
We need, 3 people? Is that what we're looking? 2 or 3
Yes,
people?
3.
Would you consider it?
Yeah.
Councilman Souza? All right. Joanne? You very strongly, you feel very strongly about this. Would you consider doing this?
Sure.
Okay. So we have Councilman Souza, Vice Mayor Pizzillo, and Councilwoman Osborne that have agreed to be this subcommittee. I thank all 3 of you for participating. Now, what would you like me to do?
You can make a motion to formally appoint them to the committee.
All right, I make a,
right.
who would like to make a motion? Make a motion to formally submit these 3 for.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I move that we accept Councilman Souza, Councilman Pizzillo, and Councilwoman Osborne to be on our subcommittee.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right. It has been motioned by Councilwoman Campbell and seconded by Councilwoman Loretano for the appointment as a subcommittee. All those in favor?
Discussion. I have another
Oh,
question.
discussion.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm just
I'm
missing
sorry, Mayor.
discussion
I just
tonight.
want to be clear in my mind how this is really going to work. If we bring the candidates back here for us to interview publicly, do we vote that night, and do we vote publicly on whoever is coming up?
You're,
How are we going to do this?
well, it's really up to you.
Oh, dear.
What you can do tonight is appoint your subcommittee, and as the process is laid out in the adopted Procedure 98.2, that subcommittee is going to review the applications, interview if that's their desire, and then make recommendations to council. What I suggested this evening is, as the entire council, you may want to give direction to that subcommittee on what do you want to see. Do you want to see one person recommended? Do you want to see multiple persons recommended? Then it's up to the entirety of the council at that point whether you want to conduct interviews or not. I think we probably would like to have an idea before that time so we can make preparations for that. But that's certainly the purview of the entire council to make that decision on public interviews, private interviews, and how to go forward. But your first action is take a vote on appointing those 3 members. Then certainly you can have a discussion on process, where do you want to go from here. And I think it's important that you all have a consensus on what that process is going to be.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and now we can have this discussion.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you a quick question, because typically, when you interview individuals, they come in, you interview them, and then you kind of go away. You have your discussions among your panel on who you want to select. Are we within our rights to have the public interview here? We have the discussion, but when we sit as a group, and we're selecting to determine which one it is, can we do that in an executive session as a group? Discussing what our favorites were, which ones were their number 1, 2. Is that allowed under the executive as opposed to?
It is. If you look at the Arizona statutes regarding the open meeting law, and you look at the section on the executive session regarding personnel, appointment of a public official is listed under the allowable categories. So you can't make the decision in executive session, but you can have discussions. That's certainly up to the council if they want to exercise that option.
Yes.
I really like how Councilman Pizzillo set it out with the subcommittee narrows it down to the final, like 2 sets of interviews, a set where they narrow it down, and then we just would do the final.
The total council.
Yeah.
The total council narrow it down?
No, the subcommittee does
Set
narrow
opposite.
down, and then
Okay.
just like the top, whatever they decide, interview.
Interview in a public forum.
Yeah, the second round.
Yes. So if we were to say 20 people applied, and the subcommittee then picked their, say, top 8, interviewed those 8, and then picked, say, their top 3, and those 3 then came to the public forum. That, like in a candidate forum, we would ask all the same questions of each candidate. We wouldn't, be narrowing them.
I think you have to have that set.
Exactly.
I think it has to be very fair that way.
Then we could go and we'd hear them all, and then we could go into an executive session and discuss of those 3. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Then we'd come back and we would vote on who.
The only thing I would tell you is that when you're talking about personnel law in executive session, if you're going to talk about a person in executive session, you have to put them on notice that you're going to talk about that person. That person can say, I'd rather you have that discussion in public, and then you have to have it in public. Just full disclosure.
We want to make sure we're doing anything right.
It's allowable.
It's allowable, okay. So at this point, we're just directing.
If you have a consensus that you'd like the subcommittee to interview the initial slate of candidates, make some recommendation of a manageable number to the council, then have a public interview. If there's a consensus on that, that's certainly workable.
Well, let me, any other?
Yeah, no, I just think it has to be a choice. If you recommend one, there's no choice. So we've got to come back with at least, unless only one applies, then we don't have any alternative. But if there's more than that applies, we've got to come back and give them a choice as a subcommittee. That would be my suggestion. There's got to be a choice.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what this is all about, right? No.
So what if each person goes down the line and says, like you were just saying, how you feel about that public part? How do you feel?
Well, how I feel about the public part is we're going to be picking who we want in front of both candidates. They're going to be registering our vote. And I certainly wouldn't want someone applying to be a council person to feel that we didn't really want them, but someone else had better qualifications is what I'm getting. Before you came back with one recommendation, that we expected the subcommittee to do all the work. We expected them to talk to the candidates, ask the questions, and see if in fact the candidate would be qualified to fill this position, and then they would come back and tell the council, this is who we recommend. And at that time, it would be an up or down. But now we would be voting in front of 2 candidates, or 3, very publicly, which is what I'm getting at. You know, if y'all are comfortable with it, I am comfortable with it. But you need to realize we're starting a new process that we have not done before, and almost it would be best if we addressed it in the charter, but we cannot do that at this point.
Mayor, Lord, Councilman Campbell, just to be clear, your process, the actual process, the nuts and bolts on how to appoint somebody, that's not a charter provision. That's it's a council-adopted process, and not any different than what you're doing right now. And it's within, I think this is close, this is within the confines of that process. It gives you flexibility. So the charter just says if a person resigns in their first year of office, you call a special election. If they resign after they've been in office for 1 year and 180 days, council may appoint. So that's the charter provision. Then you get to the council-adopted policy on nuts and bolts, how you want to feel that. This is certainly within the parameters of that.
Yeah, but to me, it's everyday life. I mean, I don't know how many interviews I've gone on. You get in the top 3, and you don't always make it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's just the way it goes. I mean, gone through a lot of interviews, or interviewed, and typically you get a short list and you pick off of it. No different than anything else that you're interviewing for. So I just don't, you know. And again, I was here at that same discussion a while back. I just think it's important from a transparency standpoint, and that the subcommittee comes back with more than one, because if we only have one, then there is really no recommendation, because you're kind of pressed for time. So I just feel strongly as far as that approach, and did last time when we did it. So.
Madam Mayor, if I could just piggyback on to what Councilmember Campbell is saying. You're correct, and Joe is saying, you're correct, but making a decision in public between 3 people of this community is difficult. And so I just point that out to you.
Henceforth, we have a ballot that we turn in.
Yeah, in all of
vote that nobody has to see.
In all of the examples, Joe, that you're talking about, you know, I've gone through a lot of job interviews. The selection is always private, because that's very difficult to make in the public.
And that's why I mentioned on the executive session where we break out on the 3 to discuss, you know, who's the top choice.
And you certainly could exercise that option to have that discussion.
I mean, that's no different than typically what you do in any interview process. Is after the second one comes through, you know, you all meet with whoever was the actual selection committee or whoever was the panel that comes up with a number 1, and you notify the applicants appropriate. So, and that's why I asked you from a legal standpoint, is that an option? Is that a viable option? But you said there's an exception in it.
There is an exception. I just want to make you aware of that. It's rarely exercised. You can certainly have the discussion. And one thing we want to think about is timeline, because we have this set where council takes action on April 25th. Now, are we contemplating that you want to conduct the interviews on April 25th? Or do we want to try to schedule a special meeting in advance of that date to conduct the interviews, then maybe come back on the 25th and take action? I mean, that's certainly something we could think about as well.
It's a short timeline.
Your process.
Short timeline.
Yeah.
And I can assure you, fellow council people, we cannot afford, you know, to go through this process again of having an election. We're already going to be paying for one here in May, and we don't need a second one. So those of you who are on this committee, we're asking you to be assured that you're going to meet this timeline that's necessary.
Well, as a follow-up to what you had mentioned, Rourke, maybe a date a little earlier for the interview on the 2nd, and then a special meeting to make the decision. You know, and again, if we can meet, you know, an exec to hammer out, you know, all of the issues and all the individuals' qualifications to come up with a recommendation. But maybe, I know you had or I guess the city clerk had a schedule in there, but maybe we need one maybe a little before to allow the timing to do the seconds and then do the special to make the decision. Going to have to take a look at that schedule, because right now you have it on the last day of the possible, which doesn't give you any latitude there. So we got to be careful. We don't want to go over the 30 days. That's the problem. We got to make sure we don't do
I
that.
think there's a couple extra days at the end, but We were trying to build around the standing council meeting schedule as well, and give the subcommittee enough time to receive the applications, review the applications, and conduct interviews if the subcommittee chose to do so. Now, we can compress that time a little bit after the application due date, and try to get the subcommittee's recommendations done in a shorter period of time, and try to squeeze a special council meeting in. If you want to have the full council interview and the appointment on 2 different dates, that's workable. I say that's workable. Now I'm going to look at Lynn and.
I have a question. How long do they get to turn the application in? How long is that period?
April 8th.
April 8th,
Yeah.
5
Okay.
o'clock.
And again, it's all working back from that April 25th date to allow time for the process. It's quick. It's a quick turnaround. And like I said, they will be available tomorrow, and
It's a
people
quick
can start
turnaround.
turning them in tomorrow. On Wednesday, we'll post the notice in the newspaper as required by the adopted policy. So everything is set up and ready to go.
So, are we ready to, so we want to vote on?
I don't think you need a formal motion on that. I think if there's just a consensus on that,
All
we have an
right.
understanding that it's going to be multiple recommendations from the subcommittee to the entire council. I think there's a consensus on that. Councilmember Sousa, is that acceptable?
True.
And an opportunity for the entire council to conduct a public interview. I thought I heard a consensus on that as well.
Well, it's not my favorite process, doing it this way. I think there is going to be some repercussions from it. I've just come out of an election, and I'm going to tell you, it's tough out there. And so for that reason, I think there's going to be a lot of hurt feelings. I don't think that everybody applies for something, is comfortable in a public forum like this, but if they're not, they won't come forth. And so if the consensus is here, I'll go along with you, but I just want it made known that it is not a process that I would normally vote for. But if the consensus is here and you want to do it,
Well,
I'm going to give you that opportunity.
I will state, in case I didn't earlier,
Yeah.
you do have the opportunity to conduct those interviews in executive session,
Oh, we can do the interviews in executive session?
if that's council's desire. There was discussion about having the public interview, but just to make you aware, you
Yeah, well, I
could do
thought
it in
that's
any
what-
session.
I thought that's what it was. I thought the interviews were being in a session.
That's
I
not
thought everything was, isn't that what we've been discussing?
I've heard interviews in public session.
Public,
see,
public
that's what I've
session,
heard.
okay, public meaning that, in other words, we're there at the table asking the questions of a candidate. We're not opening it up to the public for them to be asking
No,
questions or
but-
comments. We're not asking for that. It's
No,
it's
right.
just that we're doing this with in front of everyone, but asking the same questions of each candidate, so that's fairness, and we're not asking for comment from the public, because then it could get ugly. You're right. And so,
I mean, I'm going to go along with you because I feel that you want to try this, so I just wanted to let you know what my feelings were, and I hope that I'm the wrong one that has.
Madam Mayor, just one other
Yeah.
logistical problem. Are you going to allow the public, or in the public is going to be sitting the other candidates, so they have time to prepare the questions that they're hearing being asked, knowing that the same question is going to be asked? Because this is the problem we have
Yeah, that's
when you're
true.
recruiting professionals.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Can they not be if you're
And
being a
that's
candidate?
where the dilemma comes in. Do you do the interviews in the executive session because you pull them in one at a time and they don't get the questions in advance so they can prepare, which makes it fair.
Or you could do a mix of the two. You could also break it up and do half in each session, several questions in public. There's multiple ways to do this. I'm not advocating any of them.
well, when you're a candidate and you're at candidate forums, you don't know what questions are going to be asked of you. That's
No, they're
This
saying
is a
if,
two-year-
they're
this is
saying if you do the
2 years.
interview, Joanne, and you bring one up and you ask them the question,
They're going to hear them all.
is it good? Well, you're right.
Okay.
You're right. You're right.
I
We
think
do
you
it
know
at
what Joanne
candidates.
said, if you do it in a form, like
Yeah.
you don't put one person there, you put the 3 there at the
Yeah.
time, and like what they did, like sometimes Joanne would get the question before I would, so I'd have like a person to plan, and then other times I would get it first and be like, Darren, I didn't answer that one as good.
Well, then I guess that you can arrange that for that evening, your committee, that should be very,
You could do
very
that in some
astute.
sort.
I'm depending on the 3 of you to come through with this process.
You could do it in a forum format and rotate the questions. That would
Okay.
be fair.
Okay. So,
Hey, Eddie, remember how, it was like with the Exactly.
So we have consensus here that this is, I'm looking at everybody, I'm not,
I'm saying, well,
I mean, you and I are in the same boat. I wouldn't do,
Same with
I wouldn't do this, but I'm going to be a team player here, and I'm going to go ahead and let this, because I don't think we'd have the vote voted down. So
Well, I'll just make sure I understand the kind of direction that we have too on the process. Though we have the option, once the interview is here and the questions asked and the responses, to convene into executive session to hash out among ourselves, just like any panel would be, just like the newspaper did. I mean, they didn't make their decision right there in front of us. They got in a room with their panel and decided which ones they were going to recommend. We could do the same thing in the executive session. That's not hashed out in public. We can do that legally, right?
Yes, you cannot make a
Ooh, that was a
decision in
slow-
the executive
not make
session.
a
We can
decision.
certainly have
Yes.
discussion.
We'll not make a decision, but we can have that discussion.
Can we also task the subcommittee with coming up with the questions for the forum?
thank you. I thought that was absolutely, that was my suggestion.
Sure. We'll
Okay.
come up with it.
okay.
Okay, do we have consensus? I think
I
let's
think
go
so.
through it one more time. Subcommittee's going to make multiple recommendations to the top candidates to the entire council. Subcommittee may or may not conduct interviews, or they are going to conduct interviews. Probably so. Then we will conduct a candidate-type forum with the entire council in a public meeting, likely before April 25th in a special meeting. Is that acceptable?
And can we get that put out? Can we publicize that right away, as in the process that we're putting in?
Lynn and I will look tomorrow and come up with the dates and let you all know.
Yeah, I would really like the public, I'd like the public to know, as soon as possible.
I think we'll probably want to update the application, let them know that the interview will be public, because I think they probably need to know that going in.
Okay.
I think the application is timed to be released at midnight tonight, so, I don't know, Paul, can I change it?
But I don't think the
Paula, you
application
wanted to work
changes.
all
I think
night.
the process changes.
Not,
We'll change it. in the
not to throw too much ointment into the mix there as well, but to follow up what Lynn was mentioning is if you want to have enough time, is that if you have the seconds here, we can actually have a special meeting held, whether that night or whatever, to discuss the top candidate, okay? And then have another meeting to do the appointment or the final recommendation.
I think that's where I was at, that we try to schedule that forum meeting the
So,
week
but that
before
would
the
give us
25th.
time before the actual formal appointment to notify the one who came out number one, and if we interviewed three, the two that didn't.
So we're not voting in front
We're
of
not
someone.
making
You
a
got it,
vote.
right.
That's the key thing, is that we're not publicly voting in front of someone. We can come back out and say, we've
The
recommended
consensus
that.
was, okay.
You do that on another day, but you've notified those, they're not there, you notify
there,
who's
okay.
number one. And
You just
just like you would do.
You just write the directions down, and I'll be there.
The vote will be taken in public, though.
Yes, the vote will be taken in public.
Right, but it's not Wally saying, oh, I vote for Joe and,
Right.
and I vote for Steve and I vote for, it's not that. That's what I think the concern is, right? Okay.
And I hope we will develop this as a process if we're going to be using this.
I think
As
it's
you do
probably
this.
fair that this policy, just judged on the number, was written in 1998. So certainly, the views of that council may be different from the views of this council on how they want to fill seats in the unfortunate event that we have to do this again, which we
okay.
hopefully don't.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we seem to have a rash.
Okay.
But let's see how this goes, and maybe we want to rewrite the policy.
And can I clarify one more thing?
Yes.
Because I did have a couple of people ask me, that's why I emailed you guys, and just for the record so people hear, we can't use the special election that's coming up in May. We're not allowed to, right?
I don't think we can make that. You would have to call a independent special election. I just don't think there's any way to make a May. I'm getting
No, you
big
can't.
eyes from.
I just wanted to
No,
clarify
you
because
need
a
like
couple of people
120
asked
days lead in.
specifically that.
So it'd be a completely
there's no
different
way.
special election.
Yeah, that's why I
There's no
said
way to
that.
make those timelines.
That's why I'm depending that you're going to do this within the time frame that we said, because
Oh, yeah. Oh,
we
no.
do not want to have that happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that the
I
end of what
have-
we, thank you very much for the time. Now it's time for information items. Council? I'll start down there. Wally, do you have anything you want to?
No, thank you.
All right. Councilman Osborne?
Yes, I attended the MAG Continuum of Care annual award luncheon for homelessness, and myself and Miss Ellis, who's the chairman, we were honored to give out the awards for Star Awards, and actually one of the Star Awards was one of our own citizens of Goodyear, and I was very proud to see that, and I wrote down, oh my goodness, where did I write it? Well, her name was, I think it's Nikki Stevens, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about her, and now I don't know where my papers went. But it was very exciting that one of our own citizens was the award winner.
Well, that's great. And aren't you about, did you take the chairmanship of that, or are you about to?
That's coming up, yes.
That's coming up, all right. Councilman, Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Me? Okay. Saturday night, it was both the Goodyear in Action night at the ballpark, and it was also Goodyear Little Leagues night at the ballpark. So I was bouncing around from two different sections, but it was really great to see all the Goodyear Little League players down there. Also attended Luke Days, and they got a card on who the sponsors were, and I hope in 2 years when it comes back we can somehow find the money to put the city of Goodyear as a sponsor, because when I got that card, I noticed our city was missing. So it was kind of a little, not upset, but I know it's a money thing, but I think that's something really good since we do support Luke, and that's a good advertising tool, because you think of all the people who might be coming to the West Valley, say, hey, I need a house. We've got them. Also attended at Lockheed Martin for the F-35. They actually let you get in the simulator, and I landed it without crashing it with some help. It's like the best video game ever. I know you've seen it, but I was just
in it.
he helped me land it, so I didn't do anything. And then the other thing is I did attend the budget meeting, and I was kind of a little disappointed. We only had six citizens. It was more staff, and I do appreciate all the staff that came out. Maybe next time we do it after we actually disclose the budget. You know, maybe after we have the budget out, and maybe we'd get a little more interest. Because I would have liked to see more people there, because that's all I heard on the campaign was budget, 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 and then I was very disappointed. And the staff did a very good job. I would have liked to see more specifics, and maybe because it wasn't out yet, maybe if we just time it a little different, maybe we can get some more people there, because I would have really liked to hear a lot more input. So when we go through this process, I kind of know what's important. So that's what I attended.
Councilman Souza?
On the 23rd of March, I attended the monthly meeting of Westmark, where the interim chairman was appointed, and that is going to be John Bradley, who is formerly associated with the construction of Verado. There was the main issue in the future is going to be on transportation initiatives. And Westmark is going to be heavily involved in that, and ask the cities that are represented and manufacturing companies that are represented to get into the information items that are needed to make this thing become a reality for really the West Valley. We are also concerned about HERF, that is the Highway User Revenue Fund. They insist that the funding be allocated only for transportation purposes and not distributed to other uses within the state budget. Those are the two items that are going to be pushed by Westmark in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I left my list at home, so if I bring it in, could it be attached to the minutes? Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, I did find her name.
Oh.
It is Nikki Stevens, and she's the housing administrator with Arizona Behavioral Health, and just very proud of her.
Very good. Before adjourning our regular meeting, we have to announce there's a special meeting immediately following this, so the rest of you are going home at 10 to 9, and we're staying on for a while. I'm sorry, Joe, did I miss you?
No, just comments to
have
staff, I guess, or direction.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Directions to staff. Again, I guess the Palm Valley Golf Course, west side, yeah. Not the one area we talked about, but the median, on Palm Valley and Estrella, west side, is growing again. So weed control, can you talk to the owner of the Palm Valley Golf Course and get him to work on that for me, please?
We will do that.
Thank you.
And John, didn't we ask you for, we're looking into something from tonight, yellow paper or?
Well, we're going to work on Estrella Parkway striping and get back on that.
Okay, early
And
on.
we're going to,
Something I
that's all
asked
I
you.
have. Pardon me?
The fire.
The fire license.
Well, that was.
The inspection.
Oh, yeah, we're going to do that.
Oh,
and
yes,
we're-
on the
Yeah.
fees.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
That's
Is there
going to be part of
anything
the
else?
budget presentations.
All right.
In the last, probably 7 years, we've had, actually back when I was on planning and zoning, we've had discussions for quite a few years regarding an update of our design guidelines.
Oh.
And I'd like to know where we are within that. Are they being updated? Are they being discussed? What progress is being made on it?
I will certainly get that
Yeah,
information.
I'm with her on that, and I've asked that question several times over. Before all this development keeps coming in, and we haven't changed it, so, okay.
If Karen's little line goes up.
I've got one too. While we're talking about weeds, a resident asked me, one of our citizens, on Estrella, where you take it over towards Rainbow Valley Road, and there's a Welcome to Goodyear sign. I guess it's getting very heavily overgrown, like on our portion of it, Goodyear's portion. If we could check that before it starts drying out and becoming tumbleweeds and fire hazards. Thank you.
Everybody finished? John, do you have anything?
Not this evening, Madam Mayor.
Before adjourning the regular meeting, there'll be a special meeting following this one. Ready? Time to adjourn this meeting and go into special meeting. We're going to do it right here, though.
Yeah, you gotta
Wait,
open the
you
special
gotta do it right
meeting.
here, right here.
And then take a break. Yeah, I can just stand up. I'm going to stand in that room. I'm not sitting down.
I'm going to call to order this meeting, and we're going to do a roll call. Councilman. Need a motion to go into special session? Motion, please.
I move that we go into special session.
Second.
Second.
All right, motion by Councilwoman Campbell, second by Vice Mayor Pizzillo. Roll call.
Lorentano,
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell.
We can accept applications.
Councilmember Sousa. Councilmember Osborne.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo.
Aye.
Mayor Lord.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Okay, where are we?
We need to leave.
All right.
You want to take a break?
No, I want to tell you, Council Souza, he has to leave. All right, so